Hello and welcome to episode 57 of The Imperial Truth. I'm Greg. Joining me, as always, is Neil.
Hello, Greg.
Hello, Neil. And
Hello.
We are sponsored by the lovely Lil Legend Studios. So Miles, as we've said millions of times, creates wondrous pieces of artwork, either individual figures to make your army stand out, or he can paint armies, and he can do custom models as well. But the big thing, I think, is he seems to be getting a lot of people doing his little painting classes.
Are they becoming popular? Because I haven't really seen one yet.
Well, he keeps posting up little bits of work, and the tagline is, we were working on this today in one of our online classes, where we sat down like for most of a Saturday or something with a person, and he could do various time limits and everything else as well. And you can get some one-on-one hobby coaching without having to leave your house.
I think that's quite useful.
It is, not everyone can get the time to get away, to get somewhere. And a lot of these classes are not necessarily one-on-one. There is some one-on-one in them, but breaking it down, having a more focused session where you can specifically get exactly what you want sorted. And as I say, from your own house. So, it's literally, from 7 to 8 or whatever, or maybe longer. You work with Miles and sort that out, and you can crack on and learn how to do something very specific, or how to paint whole armies, or whatever.
Yeah, good way of, if you've got a project coming up, a great way of maybe learning some new techniques and getting stuck into them.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a good servant of the heresy community as well. He's been on Age of Darkness a number of times now, chatting with those guys and everything else, and it's going to be good actually, because I suppose I'll see him at the Weekender, which will be the first time I've seen him in quite a while. So
yeah, me too, actually. I'm looking forward to seeing him again.
Bless him, he gets excited.
He does, he's very excitable at a Weekender.
Excellent.
So next up is Element Games, a great place, one-stop shop for anything you might need for your hobby, whether it be paints, glue, models, board games, presents for the mother-in-law. I'm sure they sell something along those lines. But get in there and click through the banner and get your percentages off. So you've got 20% off GW on the pre-order weekend.
Yeah, while it's up for pre-order, in general, because there have been a few exceptions, but in general, it's 20% off while they're on pre-order. Yeah, so all your, whatever, 1,000 Suns were coming out and all that jazz, and there's going to be loads more coming. It always is. It's GW's
really
non-stop.
Popular, those 1,000 Suns. I've seen them everywhere.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, Element just smashing it out with their delivery is the big thing. I'm sitting here thinking, oh rubbish, I forgot to tell my brother kind of some ideas for Christmas presents, and have to be careful with some of my family because they will just buy me utter rubbish if I don't guide them. So here we go. Yes. Here's 2 or 3 Element links and something else. And I know that actually even now, if he goes and orders from Element, it's going to be here in a day or two, sorted in time for Christmas. So it's always good.
Always good.
Excellent stuff. And talking about kind of what date it is, we are coming towards the end of our draw for the poster, for the signed Master of Mankind poster. So if you do want to have a chance of winning that, we've got about 70 odd tickets sold, which is respectable, very respectable. Thank you for the guys who've done that. The second prize is Master of the First, the Long Night CD, unfortunately not signed. If you do ask, I don't think I'm going to see. Maybe if Gav Thorpe's at the birthday bash, not the birthday bash, it was the birthday bash this year, the New Year's open day. If he's there, I might try and get that signed for people, but there's no guarantees. I don't know who's going to be where, but it's not signed, but I thought I'd give it away anyway. So if you do want to get involved in that, you can find all the details. They're pinned to the top of the Facebook group, and they're on the website. If you go to theimperialtruth.com, go to the top right, and you can see the charity raffle, I think it's called, up there, or draw, whatever we use for it. And all the details of how to PayPal the money are there. And I say all that money is going to go to the charity, the
Evelina Children's Hospital.
Yeah, absolutely. The podcast is going to pay for the postage, or I will out of my own pocket. And we actually had someone on Twitter who had experience of it as well. It's amazing sometimes how you don't tend to think about who's affected by these things, but they must help so many children, so many families, and extended families. So it's always good to help out.
Definitely.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Okie dokie. Moving on to something a little bit more pithy. We had some new iTunes reviews, so a kind of a reminder, because we haven't done this for quite a while. If you do use iTunes and you do listen to the show, because you're listening right now, then you can always leave us an iTunes review. They are helpful. They help people discover the show and understand what the show's about before necessarily downloading. And we had one that came in, and it was about last episode 55, where we were talking about the Shadow Wars event. And I just wanted to bring up, I'll quickly read out a brief surmising of it. So we talked about turning people away from events for lack of painting, and then complained how judgmental people could be about list building. And those two things seem to be at odds for this person listening. And I just thought, if one person's thinking that, maybe other people are thinking that. So maybe it's something to address. And I can understand a viewpoint from that. I think maybe we didn't make it clear, but the big thing about the painting is, big thing about an event is you create an event, and that event has a style, a theme, parameters in which to participate. So that might be utterly high end. I went to a Warhammer event last year called the Mingvitationals, and there was a guy called Ming on the Warhammer scene, and I talked to him beforehand, and he kind of suggested something. I kind of made it, kind of suggested something even grander, and then he came up with something even grander, as it were. And it was an event where if you had one of the best looking armies in the Warhammer tournament scene, then and they had a painting rankings at the time, they all got an automatic invite, as did one of their friends, because you never want to go to an event, without friends, if you can go with friends.
That's true. Yeah.
And then everyone else had to apply to a place at this tournament, and they had complete carte blanche to say yes or no, because at the end of the day it's their event and they can let who they want come. My army got in, not because it's necessarily the best painted, it looked reasonable enough, but it was unique. It was an all-mounted Marauder Cav army, which was kind of completely unheard of. Well, not unheard of, but certainly hadn't seen anything really like that. So it had a really cool theme about it. My mate Dan got in because his army was all-mounted Khorne, and it looked good and had a cool theme. And then other people got in purely off their painting, or what have you. And the idea was to create a narrative event with super cool, super awesome looking armies, whether that was because, as I say, because it had massive amounts of awesomely kind of converted models, whether the paint job was amazing, whether the list was completely out of the norm and a bit funky and cool, for all these different values. And Ming could decide those values in his own head because it was his event. So you can have that kind of event, and then you can have the intro into the Horus Heresy, which I've seen been used a lot the last year, where it's like, this is designed to get people into playing the Horus Heresy. There's no painting requirement. There's no, there's no restrictions on what you bring. And there's kind of no expectation for you to have to even have heresy models, as a full army. And that event is designed to try and suck people into the heresy as a game, to give people an opportunity to play it kind of in a wide context and to see if they like it and therefore uptake it. Now, those two events are completely extreme. Now, you try to get into Ming's event with a set tournament list which isn't painted and looks average, he's not going to let you in. But the other army, that's the other event, that's fine. So you have an expectation of what you're going into. In the heresy side of things, we have narrative events where sometimes people tell you what level of army they expect, so you have to try and hit that. Now, with Shadow Wars, the pack very clearly stated all armies must be painted. Any model that isn't painted will be removed as a casualty. So when someone turns up with not painted models, and I'm not talking about the ability, I'm talking about not painted, they were sprayed red. or black or what have you, they shouldn't be allowed at that thing because they are breaking the rules, the contract of going to play, which they knew when they bought the ticket. There was nothing in that pack about how you should make an army. So no one could actually tell anyone they brought the wrong army. You can have ideas about what you believe is a Shadow Wars army, but if the pack allows you to bring an army, you're allowed to bring an army. So they're two fundamentally different things, as far as I feel. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
Well, see, yeah, for me, I'm very much with you on that the tournament itself is very much, it's controlled by the organizer, and the organizer sets out how they want it, what type of tournament they want to run. So within that, you've got to know what tournament you're going to and how it's perceived for the other people that are going, because as well as the tournament organizer, say, organising, a tournament where they want all painted armies or they're not really bothered, the people that are going to that then also buy into that event. So, their expectation would be, oh, well, it doesn't matter. It's going to be that type of event. Whereas if you're going to you've paid your money, you've bought your hotel, you've invested your time and energy into getting your army up to a standard, but then someone else doesn't, then that can probably take the shine off it a bit, I would say. It's a bit of could be a bit of a downer that, especially if you're playing purely for the narrative and then you're playing against someone with a red sprayed army or a black sprayed army that maybe is a list that you could have been thrown together just to try and make an effective killing list, could maybe mean that game is a bit sort of like one you don't really want to play. And that's one game out of your 5.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, if the Shadow Wars event had said models need to be appropriate but no painting requirement, then the bloke's done nothing wrong. So you're not having a go at him. I think, well, in a way you are, you know what I mean? But yes. I'm not like angry at him. I'm disappointed that they allowed it. And I understand why they allow it, because it's GW and the bad press that can come with that. But I have seen armies at independent events been turned away because they don't fit the requirements. And that's not the fault of the event organizer. That's the fault of the person who bought that army. And it's all on their own back. And you buy the ticket being told quite explicitly that you won't be able to use any of those toys. Yeah, as I say, if there was no painting requirement, he can play. Cool, not a problem. But you're again you're in a different thing. The comment was something along the lines of basically suggesting there were possible double standards, which is fine, fair enough, The difference is I would play the guy because I'm at that event. Would I go to an event which allowed unpainted models? That's a very different thing, because although it's that guy's hobby and he can play with red, pure black, pure blue, whatever, Marines or grey, unpainted. Yeah, one of my mates is really slow at painting and he always plays unpainted. Right? Well, yeah, that's his hobby. Brilliant. But if every single other person he knows only plays painted stuff because that's what they want, that's not their problem, because that's the way they want to hobby. So, yes, everyone can do whatever they want, but it doesn't mean that you have to lower your standards or change your idea of what the game is. And I say lower your standards not in a derogatory term that, you know what I mean? It kind of sounds worse than it is. I don't mean saying that no one who paints the models is lower standards, but there are some things where people do consider themselves to have high standards and they will only play certain quality of player, for instance. Know people who've been on the ETC teams who sometimes look at lesser players and think, well, why am I playing you? I need to practice for the ETC. So there's no point me going and playing War Machine as a first-time player against a bloke who's trying to get ready for a massive tournament, because it's a waste of time for him. And it's a waste of time for me if he tables me. So just because you want to hobby a certain way doesn't mean people have to play you. Again, I withdrew from trying to make the best armies I could at Warhammer because I wasn't necessarily a fan of the way the top 4 or 5 tables were at events. So I made that decision to change what I was doing and just to be cool in the middle of the tables and not to push. Whether I would have got up there or not, I don't know. But, you know, I won an event in the end. Warhammer, I had some good results. But I was like, yeah, okay, that's their hobby. I don't want to play Warhammer that way, so I won't, because it's not enjoyable. So, and different people have very different ideas of what enjoyable is. And there are certainly people out there who will not play against unpainted models. And that's their hobby.
See, even within my little group that I've got that we play, well, I say play, I don't play very regularly at all, but the group of heresy friends that I've got that, you know, are our local club, there is a couple within that group that insist on getting their army 100% painted before they'll play a game. And they will get that army knocked out in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, a month and a half. And everyone is just in awe of like, oh wow, you've done that so quick. It looks so brilliant. Well done. And then there's other of us, myself included, that will happily play with a load of grey Space Marines because my priorities in painting lay completely in somewhere else. And for me to focus on painting an army is me taking a year out of Golden Demon. So I'm quite happy to play with Grey Marines, and I'll play a lot of other people, and it doesn't faze me whatsoever. But there are some people that will not play with an unpainted army. It just goes against what their hobby is about. So, you know, everyone's got their own different level of what they perceive, and it's just addressing the tournaments to probably match that, I'd say.
Any event that you go to where it's organised should have should be able to set out what you want. This is one thing I try to do in my events, is I try to set out right at the front of the document what type of event it is by the nature of, you know, I've put in the latest one, there's a whole kind of what is good behaviour kind of thing. You know, you're expected to be respectful to your opponent, to listen to what they're saying, that kind of thing. Just to confirm what kind of event, what kind of attitude, behaviour I want at my event that I'm running. Now, again, if that's not your way, you don't want to play that way, that's fine. That's brilliant. There will be plenty of opportunities for you to play. If you're attending my event, I expect you to abide by the agreement, because essentially as soon as you pay me, you're agreeing to play by those rules. So we're looking at having a big event maybe between Christmas and New Year at our club, big heresy game, and I'm sitting there and my first thought was all painted. Nothing on the table that isn't painted. Now, does that mean I won't play my mate Mark when he brings up his unpainted army on a club night? No, I've played him loads of times. That's fine. But for this specific game, I want everything on the table to be painted. That means I can't bring some of the stuff I've got. But that's what we're trying to do. So, yeah, it's one of those things. As I say, I hope that didn't come across right. I think because it's coming off the top of my head, sometimes we use the wrong words and whatever, or come across slightly wrong. But there is no problem with you having, and I think we've said this quite a lot on the show, no problem with you having your way of playing the game. If your way of playing the game, however, is a definite no-no for everyone you play with, then you're not going to get games. And I've seen at clubs, there are people at our club who I won't play at certain games. I just will not play them because it's not fun. It is not a fun experience. And the reason I play games is to have fun. So we don't play. And there are people at our club who I play very rarely because they play maybe a slightly more competitive manner than I do. And it's fun every now and then. And then there are people who play at our club who play exactly the way I want to play. I play them more. And that's fine. That works. That's not a problem. You know? But
yeah, I mean, for me, it's you're right in what you say. If your method of play, you know, people don't want to play you, and you don't get many games, then well, it's down to you, isn't it?
Yep.
If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do.
If you're inflexible in that manner, now in terms of getting things painted, it might be a case of you're too slow to get things painted and can't catch up. That's not inflexibility. Maybe that's a limitation. But at some point, you are going to catch up. We had people who didn't buy tickets for my last event because they didn't think they could get their armies finished in time and didn't want to rush it. Cool. They didn't come to my event. They want to be at the next one. That's fine. You know, But I know that everyone at my event had a cool time because all the armies were painted. And had one of those armies not been painted, there would have been a little bit of a sour feeling. So, and there was, as I say, there was probably one player there who next time they come, I might say to them, look, you need to finish this off. And again, it's not, and the big thing is it's not about ability. Right? Because I'm an average painter at best. Yeah, and I've spent years working to get to average. So I'm not going to turn around and tell someone that they can't come because their army's not pretty enough, because that is hypocritical to the extreme. But you can tell when an army's been worked on, and you can tell when it's been rushed out just for the sake of it. Like 90% of the time. Now, your top players might be able to rush an army out for the sake of it and it still look good, but hey, that's the bonus of being really good, yeah?
There are some horrible people like that, yeah, that you just want to slap, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. you really do. But, that's just an advantage of ability. That's, that's the same in any kind of environment that, things happen. Like the bloke with more money can go out and buy more toys. So, well, what are you going to do about it? So, yeah, it's not to have a go at people. It's just more explaining our position. And at the end of the day, as I say, if you're going to buy a ticket for an event, read the pack. And let's face it, a lot of people don't even bother to read the pack. But
no one read your pack.
No, they never do. But at least read the requirements, right? Read the requirements. And if you can't reach them, cool. Next event. And what I really would want to see is that each community has slightly different requirements. Because I don't want every event to be a clone of the previous event and whoever ran it. I don't want to completely copy Geno 5-2 or 30k Brawl, whatever they're called, or, the guys up in Durham or the Southampton lads. I don't want to copy them every time because that's dull. I like different things. So having a really hardcore tournament one place, cool. If people want to play that way, go and play that way. Having full-on narrative over here, having something in the middle over here, having something that's, more of a mix between the two. Groovy. Variety is a spice of life. So, and it could even go to the point where, I've seen people run, say you want to run an Istvan campaign, right? Or an Istvan event. Istvan 3. Brilliant. I want to go with my Space Wolves. I'm sorry, they weren't on Istvan 3. Yeah, but, well, no, they weren't on Istvan 3. And this event is designed to recreate Istvan 3. I'm not going to just try and sneak my Space Wolves in. I'm going to go, fair enough, that's not my event. And that's down to the people run it. And yeah, they might get less players than they want. They might fill out anyway. But if you're trying to create something and you don't fit into that, then you can't force your way into it. So, yeah, it's all good. I think we probably should move on. Because we will ramble more, even more than we have. Just a quick update for you,
Should we talk about the best review that we had?
No. We have got our first 1-star review. That's all I'll say. We've hit the mark, Neil.
That means you've officially made it on iTunes.
I think it does, yeah. And that's that. Fine. Not everyone's going to love the show. We know that. I've heard plenty of reviews, and I've read some amazing reviews about people's thoughts on this show. Not everyone likes me. Fine. Not everyone likes this show. Again, if everyone liked this show, then, they wouldn't all like another show. It's just the way it goes. I put out a kind of show that I would listen to. At the end of the day, that's all I can do. Some people like it, some people don't. Before we move on, how's your Leviathan?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. It's laying in bits. It's 99% done, and that includes the base, so I'm quite happy.
So you've got T-minus, what was it, 2 months, just under 2 months now?
Under 2 months, yep, so I'm cracking on with my next entry at the moment.
Oh, so, okay, and how far through that are we? Has this been put up on Instagram anyway?
Actually, surprisingly quite far.
Yeah?
Yeah, so I started this, let me think, midweek last week. I would say it is a third painted already.
Can you tell us what it is? A third? Blimey.
Yeah, so this is my Tech Priest, my Magos.
For the Night Lords.
So this guy was going to be part of the unit, my Thalax unit, but the more I've thought about it, the more actually I want to have it as its own entry. And cool. I think we spoke about this privately, but the awesome board tiles in the Burning of Prospero. Yeah. So we discussed this when we were playing, that wouldn't it be great if you could make some of the scenery, because the tiles themselves look amazing and the detail in them. And the more I thought to myself was, I'd like to base my Thalax in Prospero, so have them really coppery and have the green and make them sort of indentured to the Thousand Suns.
Yeah.
And I was looking at one of the tiles, it's got like a cracked column and it's got all the sort of like runes carved all over it, and I thought that would make an awesome base for the Magos. So I'm going to recreate that in 3D and have him perched on top with loads of shattered glass all over the base.
Brilliant. How are you doing that shattered glass? Third party?
Well, this third party shattered glass is something I'm quite excited about as well.
Do you want to keep that secret, or are you going to tell us?
Well, I'm going to tell you. So my sister works does some part-time work for a guy who works in the movie industry.
All right.
And he creates his own chemicals and like makeup and fake blood and all this stuff for film stars. And he's recently just created a new product that is like a resin that looks like shattered glass. So he casts it in some sort of tray, and then it's all quite rubbery, and you just break it up with your fingers, and then it looks like shattered little nuggets of shattered glass, but it's completely sort of squidgy and safe. And so you can just pull it apart to the size you need, and I'm going to stick that all over the base.
Awesome.
And make it look like, Tisca City's all smashed up and there's bits of glass all over the floor.
So is he going to be, are we going to be distributing this for him?
Well, this is the funny thing. I did say to him, I said, I will probably need a web link off of him, because he does sell the stuff online. And I said, because no doubt, you know what the painting community is like.
Yeah. Well,
as soon as I put that up, it's like, where did you get that from?
It's not just the painting community. If you can come up with something that does a job better than it's been done, because there are crushed glass, there are various things around that do that job to greater or lesser degrees. But if you can come up with something that fits, is safe and everything else, then then it's not just the top level painters, it's people who are like, oh yeah, no, I want to do that whole destroyed world look. Yeah, get some crushed glass everywhere, smashed up glass. But yeah, that's cool.
It will look I'm hoping it'll look very cool once it's all done. So that's my current project.
It has to now.
Yeah, let's hope it does.
Also, I suppose we should mention you had an old model on Facebook.
Yes, I did. So the community team run their monthly competitions, don't they? Their painting competitions. And when I saw the Space Wolf competition come up, I just thought, sod it, I'll enter my Space Wolf that I did for Golden Demon. And fortunately, it won, which I felt a little bit guilty about afterwards, because the photo as well is the one that I just took straight off the Gold Demon website, because it was a better photo than I had.
Nothing to say you can't do that. It just has to be on a white background or whatever, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I didn't take the photo, but I did paint the model, so I suppose that counts.
# old model.
Yes.
Shouldn't count anymore.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And there was a few people that sort of pointed that out straight away after it had sort of won, which I thought was quite funny. And there was a funny comment from you on there where they were all asking questions about
what it was made out of,
how what it was made, and what was the shield from.
Someone was asking what parts were used, and someone else was replying with, I think it was this, and I think it was this, and I'm like, yeah, just ask Neil, because I think Forge World actually answered on it as well. But
because I think Forge World may have mentioned that it was made with some sort of different kit, and someone corrected them to say, oh no, it's the Grave Warden kit, and they said, oh, thanks very much, and then someone else asked the question, where's the shield from? And you just said, well, just ask Neil.
Yeah, always easy to do, but yeah, no, that's cool. Well done, mate. Good job I didn't put my Spatials on there. I didn't want to win it.
Fine. No, I was fortunate that, you didn't put yours on there.
It's fine. That, and I haven't painted much, but, it's all good.
And that was a Space Wolf that we gave away in our competition.
It was indeed, yes. So I can't remember who we gave that to now. Blimey, that was a long time ago. But you now have a model that's not only won a Golden Demon, but has appeared on the Facebooks. All gravy. Brilliant. I think we'll leave that there then, and we'll come and we'll talk some news.
Yes.
And then after the news, we'll be doing our top 5 close combat weapons, infantry close combat weapons. And Michael from Track of Words is on, our new book guy. So we'll be introducing him and talking some books. And welcome back with the news. So, it's been a couple of weeks, and naturally, we got a load of bundles.
We got loads of stuff released. It was amazing.
Yeah. So, the bundles came first, so we'll talk them. So, books 1 to 6, one bundle, 338 quid. Sounds like a huge amount, doesn't it? I mean, it is 6 books.
It does, but I think I did some. One of the bundles
we'll go into
split down.
We'll go into that in a minute. So books 1 to 6 for £338, books 1 to 5, £264, books 1 to 3, £167, and then books 4 and 5, £116. Now, obviously, they're bundling these together because some of the, people getting into the game late, books 1 to 3, even 4, some of the rules aren't necessarily accurate according to the latest red book. We got the Age of Darkness, book. But each of those books is £74, except for Conquest, which is £80. So, books 1 to 6, £338. Do you know how much of a saving that is?
No.
£112.
Wow, that's not bad.
Yeah. Books 1 to 5, £264 is £112 saving as well. And the books 1 to 3, £167 is a £55 saving. So that's just under a fifth, just over a fifth of the same. Oh no, blimey, because that's 220 odd quid, isn't it? 222 quid. You're saving 55 quid off 222 quid. It's not bad. And £38 off book 4 and 5, so £116. You save £38. That's not inconsiderable savings.
No, it's pretty good.
And they have. You say, even though there is the entries aren't necessarily the most up to date, all the information, all the background is all still there, and it's brilliant.
That's what you've got to be looking to buy those for now, isn't it? If you want to get into them, because if you wanted to start,
yeah, you just get the Age of Darkness book and the Legends
books, and
it's not about that. It's about the colour plates. It's about the backgrounds. It's about all that, the campaigns. There's a lot of information in those campaigns.
And they're good as well.
That's a pretty good set of deals. Again, you're putting down a lump of money at the end of the day, but, they're still very good quality books. So, yeah, I was well impressed with that, actually.
I'm sure there's going to be some people out there that it's going to save them a few quid.
Always is.
I mean, ultimately, no one's going to re-buy the books, but there will be someone out there that thinks, I was going to buy them.
Or, kid just gets into I only just discovered the heresy. What is there? Well, these, you turn around and say there's 6 books out, 7th's coming out soon. No, how much are they? £74 each, 80, or you can, save 112 quid. £338 is a lot of money, but you're getting a lot for your money. I mean, we always said that the value of those books was high anyway. The price was high, the value was even higher, and now they're discounted. So, yeah, you do lose a bit of value, as I say, from the army list not being completely up to date, but that's all still pretty cool. And then we got some random weapons. Move over them. Yeah, nothing interesting.
Nothing interesting, no.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Ultramarines Praetorian Breacher Shields. So they're finally out, so people can shut up about that.
Well, I very much thought that the releases we've had is very much now shut up, please, releases.
Yeah, it was always going to be kind of coming at some point, wasn't it? Maybe it took a little bit longer than people hoped, but it's cool. They're out, As I say, they'll get there in the end. And some Nostrum chain glaives.
I was so happy seeing them out. I saw them and went, oh, thank God.
Yeah, I saw some brilliant comments on various sites like, "Oh, other companies make them better anyway." It's like classic forum chat. It's all good. So yeah, no. As I said, we've been talking about these weapon sets. It's a matter of time, and finally we're kind of pushing on with them. The Legion Breacher, the Ultramarines Legion Breacher Sealed Squad as well. Siege Squad, should I say? £70 for them, which God, it does sometimes feel expensive. £7 a model, but is what it is. You're playing heresy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why they brought out the plastic. That's why you're betraying at Caltham and you're burning a Prospero out to make the bulk buying a lot easier. And then alongside that, the Deradeo Dreadnought Arachnus Heavy Lascannon Battery Arms. Longest names ever. But they're awesome. They're so cool. 'Cause it's been a while since they were first shown as well.
Well, I saw them come out on the pre-order, and I had to think, well, I thought they were already out.
Yeah, exactly. It got to that. It's one of those ones that just kind of got forgotten about, I think. But yeah, they look awesome. As I say, we're pushing along nicely. We've got just announced, they've just shown off the T-shirt for the New Year's Open Day, which is a Legion Custodes eye with the awesome wings coming off of it, which is brilliant. But they've announced there's going to be a relic or something like that being released at that event. So we can probably guess that's either the Legion the Custodes Contemptor or the Porphyrion Knight, but I might be the Contemptor. Who knows? I don't really mind either way. Because, we're only a month away from the Weekender then, aren't we? Cool, blimey.
Oh, my dear, scary.
Yeah. So, it's not that long till you're on Weekender time. And they do that whole week rundown, don't they? So, yeah, that's looking pretty cool, all those releases.
Definitely.
And some Blood Bowl stuff as well, which is just amazing.
And some Hobbit stuff they did as well, didn't they?
Yeah, you say that, yeah, the Lake Town terrain set.
Yes.
That GW brought out, because it's all in plastic. Fantastic. Sold out in no time at all. So they're obviously going to have to go and make a load more. I've been looking at things like that. You could have that on almost any terrain, like particularly the walkways and stuff. They're just brilliant. If you want a swampy...
I think terrain often sells a lot better than GW thinks it will.
Yeah, I think there's particularly older school gamers are very big into their terrain. But it's like we used to get, and people lament the days of, we don't have the days anymore where White Dwarf used to show you how to make terrain. I think most of us would rather buy it. Because you always feel like when you're making or painting terrain, you're not painting or making models.
Yep.
So I'd rather just buy it and get on with it. So yeah, there was some really cool
and whenever
stuff.
you made it, it was never that good anyway.
No, unless you were one of that kind of top 5% of the people who churned out amazing stuff. Everyone else's was just like, oh, I see you've used a Pringles can there. It's like, yeah. Yeah, it's a tower. It's a water tower. It's like, yeah, like everyone else. But, yeah, no, it's really cool. Really cool. GW as well, we've got the plastic, we've got the Legion Apothecary coming, haven't we? What do you think of him?
Yes. I quite liked him. I know that some people were complaining that he was a bit chunky.
He does appear to be a bit rotund.
But I do put that down to the fact he's in cataphractii plate, and then he's got this big sort of apron around him, which is going to then make him look even bulkier, I suppose. You can't really slim him down much.
No, exactly. And the way it would hang would accentuate that as well, because it obviously wouldn't hug his figure like armour would, so it won't go back in after a barrel chest, which all Space Marines have. I must admit, I saw the painted kind of, the rubbish picture that appears, and I was like, okay, we'll see. And then I saw the kind of unpainted, just made. I was like, oh, that's looking a lot better. And that's on the 27th, isn't it?
As well.
Yeah, no, the needle pistol and the Narthacarium are pretty awesome. And also, of course, it's easy to swap out a hand or a weapon here and there as well. Whether he's Space Wolfy, I'm not 100% sure at the moment. But I might pick one up anyway and just kind of see if it works. That's led to me having about 5 limited edition models sat here, sprayed black, not painted yet. But, you know, hey-ho.
Even the last one they brought out, the Ultramarine Standard Bearer.
Yeah.
I've seen loads of good conversions of that now, where I didn't really like the pose, and I've seen people convert it, only ever so slightly, and it suddenly looks 100 times better.
Yeah. That kind of depends on how good you are at converting. I'm tempted to. And in fact, I think there's still a load of them up at Warhammer World. When I was up there a few weeks ago, there were loads up there, so you can still get them potentially. Of course, this is a limited release in the shops again, so we are going to have issues where not everyone gets one. There are things you can do, you can, it's harder if you don't live anywhere near a GW. And when I say anywhere near a GW, I mean not, less than 30 miles away. Right? I live 15 miles away from mine. They're a bit of a pain in the arse to get to at times, but that's fine. Make the effort. If it was 30 miles away and I really wanted it, I'd make the effort. After that, then it becomes much more of a judgment call as you're going. So if you do have that issue, that, fine. There are ways of getting these things. There are forums, there are Facebook groups where people will purchase them and sell them on. And a lot of the times, these people will do them for nothing more than covering the postage. I would always say offer them, a little bit more or a drink or something like that personally. That's my personal opinion on it. But you can find people that do that. You might not find them, but you can do. There are ways of, if you're working, getting someone else to drop in, if you've got friends up that way, all that kind of stuff. But that does mean that some people do still miss out. We do get the inevitable shop that kind of reserves them for all their customers or allows the first person to buy all 10 of them or however many they've got in the shop. That's down to their management of that individual shop. It's not ideal, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes, I suppose. I'm
very much one of the mind of, if you get on with your local manager, just asking to reserve one for you, because I'm never one to be able to get down to a shop early.
No, and I know, particularly like parts of America, there isn't a shop within 1,000 miles. Yeah, that's going to make it more difficult. I completely understand that. But at the end of the day, what can you do? I'm not going to tell people that everyone can get one. It's how hard you try. That works to a certain extent, I know Laurie Golding has a certain opinion of, I can't remember which model it was years ago, but he got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to drive 40 odd minutes to a shop to wait outside for a number of hours to make sure he got, I think it was the 40k limited edition, like messenger bag bundle that they did a couple of editions ago. But yeah, so he went to that effort because he wanted that. As I say, if you're 300 miles from your nearest shop, it becomes much more of an issue. But that's the one thing that GW do, they'd rather sell out than have stock left, and I can understand that from a business point of view. Keep an eye out, and I wouldn't buy off eBay in the first day because the prices will be redonkulous. They always appear later on. It's like that first day or two for something like this. I don't think you're never going to see one again after those first 2 days. In fact, I still see people now selling the Ultramarine ones and a few of the others. I just sold, people may have seen the Facebook, I just sold the Ortillion Score. So that's 2 weekenders ago?
Yeah.
So that's almost, 2 whole years old. The Praetor with the Hammer and the Tribune and the old Titan Princeps model. Right, so I just sold all 4 of them because I was having a clear out, and I was like, yeah, these guys are, they're money waiting there. And I didn't charge a huge amount for them, So, yeah, you do tend to find these things do pop up in the end. But That's all groovy. And the other thing is, so that's on the 27th. That's between Christmas and New Year. And this is the first year, certainly that I can remember, that GW are releasing stuff on that Saturday.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit of an odd date myself.
It is, because I kind of went in and went, yeah, you're not going to release it. It's like, no, we're releasing stuff between Christmas and New Year, which is awesome. So it's just non-stop. Absolutely non-stop. So I can only assume that 412 will have stuff come out as well. I mean, admittedly, the Friday's Christmas Eve, but... Is that right?
Yeah. The Friday's the day before Christmas Eve.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that will probably be the same, and yeah, they'll probably move on. I can see them doing that. But yeah, that'd be awesome. Which is cool. And then because it is Christmas, we've got the Black Library Advent. Yay! So, heresy-wise, we have the Grey Raven, which handles one of the continuity issues that still kind of people complain about in the heresy, or finishes up a story. That's about some Raven Guard. I won't go into it. Into Exile, which is an awesome little story that leads into Master of Mankind, which is quite awesome. Let's say I won't get into that. They've just released what's the Ultramarines one? The Soul Severed, not Ultramarines, Emperor's Children. The Soul Severed. So this is one that's going to be released in January, I think. Oh no, it's going to be part of that Heresy compilation of audios, which is by Chris Raitt, about Eidolon leading the Emperor's Children in Fulgrim's absence. And we have Perpetual, which is about Old Person. So a lot of these stories seem to be tying up a few of the loose ends leading in towards the Terror kind of thing, which is pretty cool. Definitely have the feel that we're getting everything in order before the final pushes. And I suspect we're going to get a few more heresy. I can't remember. They did break it down. I can't remember exactly how many or what, but there's loads of cool stuff in there, including Blood Bowl novels. Hey. Yeah, awesome. And let's say Michael's going to come and talk about that kind of stuff anyway, but that's been... I've really enjoyed the... I haven't read as much as I wanted to, but I've really enjoyed that so far, which is always good. Any other news? I don't think there is.
Not that I can think of.
Oh, the event. So, as far as I believe, there's just been a message by the guys who run the London 40k GT to announce that the second phase of tickets have all sold out. But there are third phase. There's a waiting list. Leading into a possible third phase of tickets. So if you are still interested in coming to the London Heresy, or indeed the London 40k GT, you can head over to their Facebook group or to the website. I'm sure that all the information's on there. And you will have all the information you require. I've got to start doing some of the other work for that, I suppose, because May will be round in no time at all.
It will be.
Yeah, and I'm just in talks with someone about an event up in Derby Way towards the end of the year. And I'm in talks with running a third event this year, which will take the place of the Scorched Earth Taken Reaver event, but not in Cardiff. So I just need to confirm a few things on that, work a few things out, and we'll start getting that. I want to get that information out quite early as well, because I want everyone to be able to come, but the idea is to move it further up the country, and hopefully we'll get a good mix of people coming there. So, yeah, awesome,
great,
awesome stuff. Right, we'll leave the news there. We'll go away and we'll come back and talk about our top 5 close combat infantry close combat weapons. Right, we're going to do another top 5. Nice and easy, thoroughly well researched, top information, top 5. So this is infantry close combat weapons.
Yes, indeed.
Indeed it is. Which was quite interesting actually when I went into it, I kind of just sat down and wrote most of these out without looking too hard, and then had a look at a couple more. There's a couple that almost made it and didn't quite, which I'll say a couple of them now. The Blade of Perdition, that's the Blood Angels double wounding blade.
Yeah, okay. I thought that might be on your list.
For me, it was just, it hasn't got the background behind it as a specific weapon, because it's quite powerful. So in game, its ability is very good. But it's like, I want to know more about it, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
And, and same with the Tyrannic Greatsword. That almost made it. That was very close. The Dark Angel's Instant Death AP3 weapon. In game, the AP3 kind of balances it. But it's quite cool to have a knightly order with an awesome knightly sword.
Yeah, but it's also the instant death on that, which makes it amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
yeah, it makes it amazing if you get that wound through. And it's a big if. Because the stuff
if you're playing lots of Mechanicum, another way of getting instant death is amazing.
Yeah, Castellax is just going to flip in, just fall over. But yeah, it's still got a wound at the end of the day, but it's a very good weapon. But just without that full background, and you can imagine it easy enough, but it was just pushed out. But there we go. Did you have any near misses?
Yes and no, not particularly. I mean, a lot of my choices have been a bit more generic, I suppose, for want of a better term. So, yeah, I sort of, but I bear in mind, I wasn't looking through any books.
Sure.
When I did this, so I was very much thinking off the top of my head what weapons I liked, what weapons I used.
I only looked through once I thought of the weapons. I know, it's just I wanted to double check and look them up. But I've got a couple of very generic options in mind. Which might surprise people. Okay, shall we hit it off then? Shall I go with my number 5 and we'll work downwards?
Okay, yeah, let's go for it.
Right. So I don't actually think they're that brilliant in-game compared to the other options that are usually associated with Terminators, but Lightning Claws.
Oh, okay.
They're just super cool. It was either Lightning Claws or Chain Fist for me, and it was Lightning Claws. I kind of started to write Chain Fist, and I'm like, but Chain Fists are just stupid in the way they actually, like, the physics of they describe them working. Or you see, like, it's a Power Fist with a little chain bit added on, and it's like, really? I mean, seriously?
They don't make much sense, do they?
No, it doesn't make sense at all. But I like them in game. But Lightning Claws are just vicious, horrible, shredding, killing machines. The AP3 is what kind of limits them in game. Still very good. The re-rolling wounds and everything, but you don't want to fully kit out Lightning Claws because you get stuck on something.
Yes, yeah, they're
they're just they're awesome, and they're one of those weapons that allows you to go to town a little bit if you want to. Looking particularly with Space Wolves as well. You've got that extra claw kind of motif.
Yes,
as well. So it does add in kind of for that thing.
Cool conversion options as well with some of the plastic. Sort of like frosty sort of claws that you can get. Yeah,
and there's a number of ways of doing Lightning Claws as well. You've got the kind of coming out the back of the hand Wolverine style. You've got the ones that are further forward than that. And then you've got, people come up with their own conversions. I remember using Necron Flayed One claws before, when you could buy parts in metal, for a power armored version of Lightning Claws and things like that. So there's lots of really cool options you can take on that.
Yeah, definitely.
I just think they're awesome, even if they're not the best choice.
Yeah, I think I mean that's the two ways of looking at this, isn't it? Really, of the thing that maybe has a great theme or sets your army off for the type of weapons you'd like to use, and weapons that are actually much more rules based that are just sort of the no-brainers, the ones that people always go for.
Yeah, you're right, absolutely right. Cool. Your number 5.
Okay, so my number 5 is the chain axe. Now, I love chain axes. And I know that they're not, rules-wise, they're nothing in particular anyway. But I think that the models with chain axes look so much cooler than any other model.
They are awesome. They are awesome.
And I must admit, I put chain axes on my Night Lords, just for the close combat weapon, but I just thought it looks so much better than a chainsword or, whatever other generic sort of other close combat weapon you might want to convert. But chain axes for me, I mean, I know that they're very World Eaters-esque, but I think they look brilliant on any model. You give a model a chain axe, it looks better.
Yeah, a chainsword is crazy enough when you start to think about how it works. Having a chain axe is just like even crazier.
Yes.
And you're like, we're talking about super far future warfare. Why do they need close combat weapons anyway? Most of the time, but certainly to the extent that they're utilised in game. And a chain axe just seems like the craziest weapon.
Yes,
like
yeah,
an
it doesn't
axe
make much
for
sense,
starters, then it's a chain weapon as well. But yeah, no, I kind of agree with you. Particularly, I think of Red Butchers straight away. I think a lot of people will, but they look awesome.
For me, it was very much the look.
Or I think of World Eaters, should I say, first off, and everyone just running forwards with chain axes in every fist.
Well, see, the funny thing is, when I was trying to put my Night Lords list together, and I wanted some extra close combat weapons, I had a quick look on the Forgeware website, and the only real simple way of getting loads of bolt pistols and close combat weapons was buying the chain axe set as well. So it actually made it financially a lot easier as well, because you could buy that set and easily then convert up a load of plastic Marines to have the the close combat weapon and the bolt pistol.
Yeah, never thought of that really. Being a Space Wolf player, I've always had access to a little bit more like 40k, which you can kind of slide in the odd bits and pieces there, here and there.
Yes.
Which is pretty cool. But yeah, no, that was a good one. I didn't actually think of chain axes. I kind of scolded myself for that one. However, it does tie into my number 4. The humble chainsword.
Oh, that's the boring one.
But it's not. Because you read the books and it's the chainsword biting through ceramite and all this. And everything about the chainsword just shouldn't work. When you look at it, it's like the teeth revving round. It's like, just no. It would break so easily and no. Everything about it. But particularly like the audio, when you hear the chainswords revving and stuff, and then you got the image of it literally just kind of biting through the armour and all that, and it's iconic.
Yes,
the chainsword is 40k.
And I think the fact that most models have, a chain axe is the sort of almost the go-to weapon, isn't it, for basic Marines?
Yeah, chainsword. Yeah. Everyone can have a chainsword. It's like the standard. You're almost assumed to have a spare chainsword on you.
And even now with the new models, you get a spare chainsword that straps to them. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's as I say, we got to hold that one when the Relic. Was it Relic? They were taking the photos at the 40k open day. We had people have made their own working ones, and even playing Space Marine the game, running around that chainsword and the smoke coming out of it and the blades whirring and the revving, and it's awesome. It's awesome. I mean, it does nothing more than a knife does in game or a fist, but that's kind of irrelevant, whatever.
Yes.
It's that story. I say it's that. It just kind of epitomizes that in the 41st millennium, we're going to have warriors who want to run up and hit people with a revving chainsword. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous, but it's awesome at the same time. So yeah, that was my number 4.
Okay, well, my number 4 is something that I've utilised quite a lot and I find massively effective, and it is the ubiquitous Power Fist.
The humble Power Fist, yeah.
Humble Power Fist, yes.
It was an option for me. I did not pick it, but it's awesome, isn't it? What should we do? We'll have a fist. We'll just make it fistier. And again, there are slight variations on kind of how they can work and stuff as well. But the model is awesome. It's like, well, how do you make a power fist? Look, we'll just make it a bigger fist.
Yeah.
Standard.
And I like the way they describe them in books, that they're delicate enough to pluck a flower, but they can also crush ceramite and plasteel in their hands, sort of thing.
Yeah, turn it off and it can do other things. And in game, it's so useful having that sergeant with a power fist.
Well, I think, sergeants with power fists are one thing, because it gives you that versatility. But, whenever I deck out Terminators, it's usually with a bulk of power fists. Because they just literally, it can literally do every job, can't it, really? It can take down the tanks, it takes down characters, Primarchs. I mean, my ultimate thing I always used to say is, if you want to kill a Primarch, 10 Terminators with power fists.
Usually do
because,
it,
not many Primarchs can stand up to that.
No, you're absolutely right. And you chuck maybe one chain fist in there for the really hard tanks. But even then, you can still do enough damage with those power fists on most tanks to deal with them. Yeah, you're not worried about not being able to hurt whatever's charging you.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is pretty cool. And yeah, just got the images of the old school model with the hip firing bolter with his power fist. This is the Crimson Fist, the old school Crimson Fist that they redid.
Yes, he's one with the orc head.
Yeah, he's like turned sideways, classic 2D pose, shooting his bolt gun off with his fist raised. Yeah, power fists. It's mad, but yeah, they're pretty cool. They are pretty cool, and you wonder as well because in some of the books and stuff, you get like people blocking a power sword strike with their power fist.
Yes,
it's just like he just punched his sword. It's amazing, but yeah, they're really cool. What I kind of loved in 40k was every now and then you'd take an Imperial Guard character with a power fist, forgetting that it only makes him strength 6.
6, yeah.
And
I think that's what's great about them. You always assume they're strength 8, don't you? But then it is very much reliant on who's using it.
Yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a bit rubbish actually. Oh, I suppose I instant kill Eldar and humans, but that doesn't really do any good when you're up against Space Marines or big vehicles, and it's like, oh, I can't hurt it anymore. Yeah, no, the Power Fist is pretty cool. Pretty cool. My number 3 was my first kind of specific kind of tailored weapon, and a lot of this choice is the kind of the visual of the warriors charging in with it, and part of it is the rules, and it's the White Scars Power Glaive.
Oh, cool.
Right, so yeah, the vision of them all riding around on their jet bikes with these blades out, whooping and hollering, and all the kind of all the cliches you can pull out, and then I mean you take the strength of the rules that allow you to take all the jet bikes, which people were moaning about White Scars kind of being that powerful. And then its stat line is, so it can be used in 2 ways. It's either strength user AP3 or strength +1 AP2. And that's, dependent on whether it's wielded one-handed or two-handed.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. And it's simple. It's an extremely simple weapon but just changes between one and two-handed. So you're up against, it all depends what you're equipped with as well. If like a lot of the time, your character maybe hasn't got a specialist weapon, so is the +1 attack worth it? Is the +1 attack worth it over +1 to wound, effectively? And AP2. But it's that combination of the both. And you're thinking that any character with the Legion of Astartes White Scar special rule, with access to a power weapon as an option, can instead take it for +15 points.
Yeah, that's cool. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's only access to those weapons, isn't it? So, with access to power weapons as an option, may instead take a power glaive. So it's not on top of the power weapon. That's just a straight +15 points, which is pretty good. And particularly for like jet bike units, which don't have a lot of access to weapons and things like that. Your Outrider units have access to extra close combat weapons, but your jet bikes don't. So having your sergeant have one of those and maybe a character with them means you can still pack a punch.
Yeah, no, I think the weapons that have got that versatile, you can use it in 2 ways. I mean, they're winning from the start, aren't they? Because then suddenly you're not thinking, well, that unit deals with this and it does that. Suddenly it's a case of it can take all comers.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time you'd just be using that two-handed anyway. But, it's, just trying to, it doesn't say specialist weapon. That would be in the rules. That would be in the type, wouldn't it not? So it doesn't.
Well, I mean, if it's not specialist weapon, that's when you're going to want it one-handed for that extra attack.
Yeah, so you only need a bolt pistol for the extra attack, but it doesn't work as an extra attack for a power fist, is what I was thinking.
Oh, I'm with you. Okay.
If you want real versatility, like my Magus Dominus has, or my Art Magus Prime has, a close combat weapon that hits an initiative and a power fist, because the extra attack's useful and then it gives them real versatility. But this gives you that kind of choice. I mean, you can always give them melter bombs if you need to.
Yeah,
so
that tank stopping.
Yeah, so there's a different option there, but it means you don't have to spend the extra points on another power weapon to get the extra attack if you're going to use it that way, which is quite cool.
Well, I mean, that was something that I didn't even consider, but I remember I was talking to a friend once, and the Alpha Legion weapon, that dagger they've got.
Yeah.
The sort of the AP3 dagger, which when you look at it, you think, oh, yeah, that's right. But then it's the fact that it's specialist weapon. So, you've got this character that's got a power fist, then suddenly he's got the extra attack.
Yeah.
Extra attack with it. And then, then you're choosing, well, do I want to hit quickly and kill this guy off with AP3? Or am I fighting someone tough and hard that I'm going to need to just power fist to death? But you're getting the extra attacks both ways.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, which is really cool. And the other thing as well is the White Scar special rules. So if you've moved far enough in your turn and you're charging, you re-roll fail to wound rolls of 1 as well. So that all adds into making this weapon more reliable.
Yes,
which is
definitely
always a good thing. Excellent, that's my 3.
Okay, well, my number 3 is a weapon that I've sort of learnt to love with my Night Lords, and that is the chain glaive.
Okay, and you can buy them now.
Yes, and you can buy them now, which I was very happy about. But the more I've looked at these weapons, the more I've thought that maybe they're underused and maybe they're actually a lot better than people would probably give them credit for.
Why is that?
Well, see, for me, I know that I've got a couple of friends that play Night Lords, and they're not a big fan of them. And that's mainly down to the fact that they're the AP3, and they've got the plus, I don't remember if it's +1 or +2 strength. I think it's +1 strength. And on paper, that doesn't look particularly great. But then with the rending that you get with it, in my book, giving the weapon rending just sort of really juices it up, because it's those extra 6s that you get, that you get in those AP2s, and the rending allowing you to sort of auto wound, big nasty creatures, makes it really useful and really, really versatile. And if you've got a unit of raptors and you give them all those, the chain glaives, I mean, admittedly, it comes quite expensive when you start putting them on every single model, but for me, they become really, really, really potent, and it's one of those sort of maybe hidden nasty units that people possibly don't know is going to hit them as hard when they charge in. Because suddenly, when you've got them and you outnumber and you're getting +1 to the wound roll and it's +1 strength already, it's rending and you're getting D3 attacks on the charge. All these things start adding up. And then suddenly you roll a bucket load of dice, and it's like, well, take that lot off.
Yeah, so +1 strength, making them a strength 5.
Yeah.
Rending meaning you can. How many attacks have they got base?
Which ones? The Raptors.
The Raptors, yeah.
The Raptors are 2 base, I believe.
Okay, so you're putting out quite a few attacks on the charge. Adding an extra 1.
On the charge, add D3.
Add D3, sorry. Okay. Oh, in which case you can aim them at Terminators and reliably get a few rending attacks, and with a bit of luck get a number of rending attacks.
Yeah.
Plus the fact you're putting them on a load of saves anyway because you're +1 strength. It means you can aim at a vehicle and put them in, and strength 5 rolling a 6 goes to an 11 plus D3.
Yep.
So you could put a couple of points on a Land Raider quite happily.
Yeah.
And a slightly lesser vehicle, you could probably kill a 3 hull point armor value 13 vehicle with not a huge amount of dudes.
Yeah, and that would be something that someone really would not consider a threat.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I wouldn't really have thought of that. But if you come up against a Sakaran, it's got a bit too close to you, and you can just go, right, well, I've got no other target. I might as well put them into that. Yep, destroyed that vehicle. Sweet, move on. And even if that's only 3 glances, brilliant. Then you're hiding behind cover.
Exactly.
Yeah, so,
Exactly,
all those things. Yeah, actually, that's quite good. As you say, the downside is the points, and then once the points get to a point and they can kill stuff, they become target numero uno, don't they?
Yes, exactly. I think the thing I like about it the most is probably people don't consider it as much a threat.
They might do now.
They might do now.
But yeah, no, we'll see. That's quite an interesting one. It's certainly something I would never have thought about. Just because I've never seen it really, and whether that's down to not having the models, not having the right bits.
Yeah, and maybe we will see more of them now that they've actually brought them out as the kits. Maybe we'll see loads of Night Lord players putting them all over their models.
Yeah, we shall see. Awesome. Shall I jump onto my number 2?
Yeah, go for it.
I've got a sneaking suspicion that my number 2 is your number 1. If that is the case, then we'll handle that as we go forwards. My number 2 is the Paragon Blade.
Dope.
What we're going to do with this one then is let's leave it. And we'll come and talk about it in a minute, just in case it's like the number 1 choice for you. So you're number 2.
So my number 2 is another Legion specific weapon, which is the Legatine Axe.
I completely forgot. Right, when we talked about doing this was like, oh yeah, Legatine Axe, I'll put them in. And then I must have just got bored of Ultramarines or something and forgotten about it.
Everyone gets bored of Ultramarines.
Yeah, no, it just slipped my mind when I came to actually writing the list out. Because this probably would have been in there, yeah.
So it's pretty tasty. It's a pretty tasty weapon. I think, obviously I haven't actually come across it, really in game yet, but I think the rules are pretty cool.
So yeah, it's strength as user, it's AP2, it's melee specialist weapon, it's not unwieldy, and it has the cutting strike rule, which any roll of a 6 to hit is an automatic wound.
And see, I think any weapon that's AP2 that's hitting an initiative order is pretty up there on my list.
Yeah, and just taking some of the dice rolls needed away by rolling, and because it's to hit as well, means that's when you're rolling the most dice. So the Suzerain come with these standard, and they're in 2-up armor as well, which is, the Suzerain are something that people talk about. They're pretty good, to be fair, and it's 20 points for anyone, again, I think, who's allowed a power weapon. So 20 points is probably fair when you look at the rules for the spear that we just looked at.
Yeah.
Because of that cutting, that cutting strike or whatever it's called.
Cutting strike's useful because how many times you think, right, I'm going to need 6s to wound this or something. Then you roll a load of 6s to hit.
Yeah.
And you go, right, let's see if I wound. No, I don't.
But that's it, five of the dudes of the unit, if they can go into something with 15 attacks, that's maybe, with a bit of luck, that's like 4 6s. So if you're fighting anything, that's 4 less dice you have to roll. Because it's strength as user, most of the time it's going to be 4s to wound, and then it goes up from there. But it's just a case of, how many times you roll, oh yeah, cool, I've got my hits, I'll roll ones. It just happens anyway. So yeah, anything that which can kind of reduce the luck element is usually a good thing. And they are
think
good.
About things like Primarchs as well. When they can be a nightmare to wound, especially when you've hit them. That's really whittled your dice down, and you go, right, I need 6s.
This that could wound stuff you normally can't wound.
Exactly.
So you can run up to a Thanatar and wound it, which would normally be out of your wounding level. You just need to roll 6s to hit. So a last-ditch effort of putting them into the Thanatar. I mean, the Thanatar's not going to do huge amounts of damage to you anyway in combat, a siege Thanatar, but yeah, if it's like, well, I need something to deal with it, those guys are there, eventually I'll roll enough 6s. So, yeah, it's, put it this way, if we had some equivalent in the Space Wolves, I'd be pretty happy.
Be all over that.
Like a tramp on chips. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, very cool, and kind of annoyed that I forgot about it. But then you're going to do that with, when you start, it's like, oh, how many weapons do we have? Close combat weapons, like the basic ones, there's probably 5 or 6 that are standard kind of weapons, like chain fist, power fist, chainsaw, power saw, power axe. What else you got? There's a few others. It's when you start to get into the specialist kind of range, then either character only or Legion specific, and even then you can move into the other Mechanicum, things like that as well. So, and I looked at a couple of Mechanicum, but there was nothing that really jumped out at me that wasn't already an option, like the Paragon Blade. So, yeah, that was cool. Yeah, no, gotta love the Legatine Axe, and I think from I remember the chat when Book 5 was released and everyone's opinions on the Suzerain and how they were going to ruin heresy for everyone. They are certainly point sufficient.
Well, that's always a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, if you're using them, it's a very good thing. And that's why I like plasma. Excellent stuff. Okay, my number 1 then. So the Paragon Blade was not number 1. Amazing, ooh. I know. There is a lot in this next choice about the fluff. And it's the Guardian Spear, used by the Custodians.
Very nice.
So, it's a spear with an inbuilt bolt gun.
Cool.
It was always described as an inbuilt bolt gun. It doesn't work like a bolt gun because you can use it differently, but slightly different profile, but it's awesome. And it's, +1 strength, AP2, and was it 6s to wound, I think? Give the extra, I'm trying to remember the rules now. How rubbish is that?
Wasn't it 6s to hit?
Generate an extra hit. So 6s to hit. Now, that profile of, strength +1 AP2 is only on the charge. But it's a spear. So I don't mind it having that kind of bonus on the charge. When you're not charging, it's user AP3. So if you're getting charged, you might struggle if there's that AP2 guy in there. But, who cares? Custodians want them charging.
Exactly. And with these things, when you know you've got that trade-off, it becomes a little bit of a, I'm not getting out of this tank because I want to charge you. And they go, well, I'm not going to let you charge me. And it can be a little bit cat and mouse. But you know that's if you've got someone that you need to kill, you might need to charge them. So you orientate it that way.
Well, yeah, there's ways and means. And when you look at the Custodians as 2 units we've got at the moment, you've got guys with shields to absorb the charge, and you've got guys with spears to counter charge. It doesn't take a genius to work out that's a plan. And you can do that with other things. You can send out a small unit of something as bait, and then have the Custodians lying behind it, ready to charge. I mean, a lot of the time, if you do it right, you can get away with being charged anyway. But yeah, I mean, they're beefy stats as well. Let's not forget that. They've got the Custodian rules about kind of being better than their opponents. And if the big thing with 6s to hit. So we talked like, if you've got 15 attacks, you might get 2 attacks, you might get lucky, get 4 attacks, you might get none. But if you get lucky, then that kind of is exponential. Like, you only need a little bit of luck to roll like 5 6s. It's not like out the realms of possibility. I don't know what the odds are. Can't be bothered to work it out. But if you do that, that's 5 more attacks, which is a considerable amount when you're hitting on 3s and you're probably wounding on 3s or 2s. So it just rolls and rolls, and it becomes a multiplier then. And that's how you get Custodians wiping out Red Butchers and what have you. And you just get utter destruction from just a little bit of luck.
And I think that's the key thing with these rolls. It's when you do get those 6s to hit, usually which they mean nothing, suddenly they mean something. And then suddenly that's that extra little element that, if 6s to wound, is, yeah, okay, well, you were going to probably, a 6 to wound is good anyway, but a 6 to hit is often doesn't mean much, but now it does.
Yeah. And so the other thing is, so you've got 15 attacks, say you're hitting on 4s, say you're hitting on 3s, and roll average, you get about 10 dice through. Well, all of a sudden you've got 10 dice, and looking at 3 6s out of 10 dice looks a lot more difficult than like 4 6s out of 15 dice, even though it's not, it's kind of like not more likely to do that, Your brain works in a weird way. But as I say, it's just that little bit of luck early on is a big thing. And again, because of the strength of the guys as well, because of the +1 strength if you are charging, you're just going to be making them roll a lot of armor saves as well. So if that guy is at the front, we're talking about, the legatine axes and stuff like that, you can, depending on how your units are made up, at the moment with the Guardian Spears it's not so much of an issue, but with the other units you can make them roll the worst rolls first.
Yes.
Kind of hoping for that one, because they're going to want ones anyway. So you can kind of go, yeah, make the rubbish rolls first. Okay. Oh yeah, good. Slip run through. Suddenly the unit's opened up. And obviously with the Guardians at the moment, that's not an issue because they're all using the same type of weapon. But who knows going forwards if you can have characters with cool Guardian Spear rules joining other units and what have you. There's loads of options. But
I'm sure they'll get even more ridiculously filthy as time goes on.
Let's hope so. But just the idea of them just standing, impaling someone, shooting them off the blade of the gun, which, has happened in Black Library books and stuff, and all that jazz. It's just, these guys have been in the lore for so long, and we're finally seeing them fight. We're seeing them models. We're seeing them on the table, and we're seeing more images of them. They are awesome. And the Guardian Spear is like the kind of, it's their signature weapon. They had the swords, they had other stuff, but it's the Guardian Spear. So
it's all
cool.
about the Guardian Spear.
Too right. Groovy. So you're number 1 then, shock us all.
Yeah, drum roll please. The Paragon Blade.
Yeah, the Paragon Blade. The kind of signature Horus Heresy combat weapon.
Yeah, the sort of one that was getting a little bit tiresome, I seem to recall at the start of the Heresy when everyone was playing. It was like, oh, what's your playtool got? It's got digital lasers, Paragon Blade, opposite armor. It was just like, oh, here we go.
I'm not sure it's changed a lot, to be honest. I think there is a little bit of a shift with the option for more consoles and things like that, but the Praetor's still a good option for the Rites of War. And if you're taking a Praetor, the Paragon Blade is, unless you've got like some of these, as we said, the Blade of Perdition and things like that are potentially very useful. But the Paragon Blade is a beast, potentially a beast. We've talked, instant death is not a rule that's, it's in 40k, it's a rule that's seeped into 40k, with various things, but also the eternal character rule is seeped into 40k in a way that they sort of balance themselves out. In 30k, apart from doubling out, instant death isn't everywhere. There's a few things that do it. More importantly, Eternal Warrior is on a handful of non-Primarch models. Even if it's a handful, I'm trying to think, Sigismund's got it. There's a few characters with it. There aren't very many. The ability to just remove a model is huge.
Massive, yeah.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's a power weapon at +1 strength.
+1 strength, AP2, hitting an initiative order, as we said.
AP2 as well. So even if you don't roll 6s, it's putting someone onto their worst rolls, making them roll more of them. It's not hugely expensive for what it does. People are going to be aiming there. If people want to try and kill your Praetor, they're going to have to send something in that can do it, which means your Paragon Blade's getting its value for money when you hit them at initiative, which, unless it's another Praetor or something like that, it's going to be beforehand. And as you say, digital lasers to get the extra attack, and you're off.
All the other stuff people do.
Yeah, the only thing it's really not good at killing is tanks. At the end of the day, but then you just chuck melt bombs on the guy again. Because it doesn't matter if you're coming up against a Castellax or just a trooper. You roll a 6, you're in. Yeah, it's
amazing.
And carry on.
one of the things I do like about it as well is how many different types of weapons can be paragon blades.
Yeah.
So you can have a chainsaw, but it could be a paragon blade because it's just the way it's made. It's not your ubiquitous, just sort of power sword looking sort of weapon.
Which
you
I
can
think,
sort of convert your own sort of things.
Yeah, I think the easiest way, I think a lot of people look at it is less confusion if it's a power-ish weapon and I call it a paragon blade. But yeah, as you say, I mean, you take 40k Space Wolf fluff in that they take the teeth from the animals they kill, which are razor sharp, and use them as some of their power weapons and things like that, you know, the Kraken's teeth and things. So yeah, you could do something along those lines if you wanted to with Space Wolves. Yeah, or you could have some form of chain glaive variant, you know, if you want to fit it in, if you want to have a chain axe, you know, you can do that kind of stuff. And just kind of, I mean, probably most people are going to make it stand out more. But
you'd hope so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're playing a game, you should be telling each other what everyone's equipped with anyway, so it shouldn't be a major kind of surprise.
And he's got a dagger. It's actually a paragon blade.
Yeah, you know, there's ways and means. At the end of the day, you're going through it all, and it should be. I've had a number of games where I've not really bothered to, oh yeah, it's a Praetor, yeah, cool. And then I just, because I'm playing Mechanicum a lot, I kind of get, oh no, you're going to have a paragon blade, aren't you? And, you know, as I've said before, I don't think my Archmagus Prime has survived more than one round against in fact, I don't think my Archmagus Prime has survived a single round against the Paragon Blade. Because 3-up saves will fail as soon as the 6 is rolled. They'll save every other roll, but the 6 roll will kill them. Simple as that.
Yep.
You know, my toughness 6 dude with 4 wounds and whatever, and 3-up save. Just take him off some. Just remove him. And I'm sitting there going, oh, well, chain fist waiting to go. But sod's law. It's so good. And in some ways, as you said, it's the similar problem to what we had with the Spartan and the Spartan Terminator character Death Star, because quite often the character was just a Praetor with a Paragon Blade and a really good save. You know, your Iron Hands can have 3-up invulnerables as well, can't they, with Cyber Familiars?
Yes.
Yeah,
can,
so,
yeah.
You know, that and then maybe an attached apothecary, and all of a sudden we talked about that for a while was just the best, easiest thing to put on the table. Again, yeah, the kind of the easiest way to pick out a Praetor, no matter what armor you give him, is Paragon Blade. Why would you choose anything else? Say the Blade of Perdition is an option. The Tyrannic Greatsword.
Yes. Yep.
If you want to fish for the instant death, the AP3 of that weapon is an issue in terms of character hunting. So that is kind of a put off on that one. But certainly having the White Scars Power Glaive, having the option of going to AP2 on that has potential. But hopefully we'll see a bit more kind of option to move away from, oh, it's a Praetor who's got a Paragon Blade. Because it's only a good thing, it's more options.
I do think, because when there's more and more stuff coming out every year, every week, I do think we're starting to see a little bit more diversity.
I think we are. My worry, as we've said on the FAQ section, is that sends us back a little bit in terms of the tanks. But hopefully, let's say on the infantry side of things, on the character side of things, that greater opportunity to do different things leads to more diverse armies being taken. Because, I say again, someone said to me, someone said on a forum that they think the betrayal of Calth led to armies being very similar. And I'm like, well, the first events I went to, like half the armies were one Spartan, 8 Terminators and a couple of characters. They're literally half the armies. There was about 4 people in any 30-player event who didn't have a Spartan. Yeah. And some people had 2 because it just stood out as a choice. And the points increase on that will go some way to kind of rectify that a little bit. And the fact that we've got so many more tanks out now that do so many different things that, yeah, you can do that. So the issue And the points changes all across the board except for the Cerberus. Because again, the Typhon was everywhere. Because why would you take another super heavy if you want to win games? You know, it's just so good at what it does. So hopefully we can not go back to having loads of tanks on there all the time for every game. But, at least if we do, we're going to have a variety of tanks. So, and yeah, as you say, you know, having the rules, having the actual models, so having the weapons kits is a big help, because some people don't like third-party products. Some third-party products aren't suitable for what they want, and I've said before, you know, I'm not going to go out and make my own because I'm not skilled enough to do it to make it look good. So I'm quite prepared to pay Forge World to do it for me. So if we keep getting these weapons out and looking good, then people will be more inclined to take them because they look good, and because that's the stories they read.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the stories add so much to it.
Yeah.
You know, you hear about some cool character with a weapon and you think, well, do you know, I quite fancy converting that and I'll have that in my army.
Yeah, too right. So, yeah, all exciting. Well, I think we've done quite well there. I'm pretty sure a load of people are going to disagree. I'm not necessarily I think the Paragon Blade will be in a lot of people's top 5. But if you want to post up your top 5s on the Facebook chat or send them to us, then yeah, we'll be glad to hear. If you think we've missed anything, chances are there's another one as well as the Legatine Axe that I'm like, oh, how did I miss that out? And this could all change, you know. Books, Inferno coming out. It could be the most amazing Space Wolf weapons ever. And
let's hope not.
And some staff for some like Space Wizards. It'll be fine. Awesome stuff. Right, I think we'll take a break there. We'll come, and the next part is Michael from Track of Words, and hope you enjoy that bit. So joining me now, we have Michael. Hello, Michael.
Well, hello, Greg.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me on.
No, well, thanks for coming on. Hope, you know, as I stated earlier in the show, this is something we're looking at doing regularly. And do you just want to introduce yourself and your blog?
Sure. So I run the Track of Words blog. I've been involved in the Games Workshop hobby for quite a long time, since sort of the early 90s, on and off in one way or another. But the thread for me running through all of that, whether I've been playing or not, has always been the Black Library books. You know, pre-Black Library with all the GW books and all the way through to today. So, been a bit fan for quite a long time. And the blog's been going for a few years now. So it's all sorts of things, but it's primarily Black Library, where I literally put up reviews of everything I read, everything I listen to, whether that's novels, short stories, audio dramas, pretty much the whole caboodles, and try and keep it nice and short, try and keep it spoiler free so it doesn't annoy people, and you know, try and look for positives, trying to talk about the cool stuff that Black Library putting out.
Yeah, I've only really come across your blog over the last few months, and it's one of the few I read because it is short and spoiler free. Some blogs,
absolutely,
they kind of take liberties halfway through a piece. All of a sudden, you're like, what? I don't want to know any of this.
Yeah, yeah. I'm the same. There's a place for long, detailed analyses of books and with spoilers and all that sort of thing. And there's some guys out there who do brilliant stuff. For me, that's not what I wanted to achieve, and I prefer to read something personally on a more regular basis that just gives me a little bit of information, gives me an idea of whether I'm going to enjoy something or not. So that's sort of what I try and aim for, and hopefully achieve that.
Excellent stuff. Now, the idea is to have you on to cover, again, in a non-spoiler way, the books as they're released, not just Heresy. This will extend, specifically we're going to look at things that tie into the Heresy from 40k. Yeah. So, the Fabius Bile book came out, and we have things like the Talon, the Abaddon series that, you know, have extremely strong links to the Heresy series naturally. So people will be interested in those. Not just that, but people are interested in 40k, fiction. Most of us came from a 40k background when it comes to the background, as it were. And also, I've received books from GW at times, so Michael's already doing this. It makes sense to bring on someone who's with it, on it, up to date, current. As we say, Neil doesn't always have the time to keep up to date. A lot of my friends are behind track, so, it makes sense, doesn't it, really? It's all good.
I think that's absolutely right. And you're right, there's so much coming out at the moment that has these really strong threads and links to the Heresy. Talon of Horrors, you gave examples, a perfect one. And the Ahriman stuff and the Fabius Bile book, absolutely the same. So hopefully there's lots of stuff that guys will be interested in.
Yeah, I think there has definitely been an interest in, I like this character in Heresy. Where can I read more about him?
Yeah, totally.
You're not going to get a huge amount of that with the loyalists. Although saying that, we are looking now, Black Library are looking at 32k, at 35k. It's not, so you started reading early 90s, you said?
Yeah, that's
I was
right.
the same, back with all the old school, Dan Abnett books and all that. And it was 40k. It was,
oh, absolutely.
There was a little bit of a period of time, but it wasn't a very big period of time. The opening of the Heresy appears to have allowed almost anything to happen, to the point where I'm pretty sure at some time we will get some information on the Unity Wars and things like that at some point.
Oh, definitely. You go to any of the events and you hear people asking what's coming next, especially now the Beast Arises has happened. There's clearly an appetite for pre-Heresy and then sort of pre-Heresy but post-40k. So, yeah, I think it'll take a while, I suspect, before we start seeing more than just a trickle. But when it does come through, I think there's going to be some interesting stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And we've also seen as well, you mentioned the Beast Arises, that as a concept of 12 books over a year, set release schedule, that they're going to adhere to. And actually back in the early 90s, for people who don't know, it was quite common to read a 40k book without a huge amount of fighting in it. Well, not common, but they were there. They were readily available. Over the last 5-6 years, they disappeared, really. It was very much, you look at things like the battle books that have come out, and it's all about the action. And we're seeing now, with titles like the Harusian Wars, by John French, that's coming out this year, that there's going to be an echo back to that politic intrigue, and the Beast Arises did that brilliantly, in various parts of the books. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, I totally agree. And I think what's been really interesting with the Beast Arises has been that overt political element that it's been a really long time since you've had genuine 40k politics pre-Beast Arises. And so much of the feedback I've seen has been, the fighting's fine, but the politics, Van Gorich, this is cool. And like you said, seeing John French's Inquisition book coming up, Chris Wright's got another one, I think there's just a demand for that. You look back to Eisenhorn and Ravener and how popular they were.
Yeah.
There's been a bit of a fallow period, that's fine, but there's clearly a demand and an appetite for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in a weird way, the Age of Sigmar fiction for me has highlighted how important it is. Age of Sigmar has a big task that 40k and Heresy doesn't because of the laws there. Age of Sigmar is new, and they're trying to introduce factions, they're trying to introduce characters and everything. And the one thing for me it's lacked a little bit is that cultural setting. And I think a lot of people are the same. And again, this year, Josh Reynolds has got his book, The Eight Somethings.
The Eight Lamentations.
Lamentations.
Called.
Yeah, that's the one. In which it's been stated that there will be kind of more of a background into a society, which really helps you kind of set yourself into the setting. It's like your groundstone,
I think that's totally right. If you look at some of the novels and novellas, especially the early ones for the Age of Sigmar, you're right, they were setting things up, but it had to focus so much on action, and introducing the concept of what a Stormcast is and all the different archetypes. But then you look at some of the short stories and you think there's hints here of the freedom that the authors have been given. Realms that are full of islands made of gemstones or cities built on light. Like, there's so much cool stuff been hinted at. Once we start getting to delve into that and develop it, I think there's going to be some really interesting stuff coming along.
Yeah, but because we're Heresy, we'll move away from the mega high fantasy arc, which is amazing, and we'll get on with what we're going to talk about today. So, as I mentioned earlier, we've got a number of the Advent stories out, and there are plenty of Heresy, as is always the case when these things happen. So let's go through a little brief over what we've got from that. So what was the first story we had?
The first one was the first of the audio dramas. So that was Perpetual by Dan Abnett, which followed on the story of All Pius or All Person or Elenius Pius or the many names that he has, that we sort of saw starting in No No Fear and then carried on with, I think it's called Unmarked from the Mark of Calth.
I believe you. So yeah, and we know, for those who know the story, not to spoil anything for others, but we know there is more to come as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's going to be quite a lot to come, not just of All, but the Perpetuals in general. But there's been talk of whether or not some of the early text is going to still remain valid by the time we hit the siege. But there's talk of, or if you look in that earlier text, you'll know that there's All Pius has an interesting part to play towards the very end of the Heresy.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that has changed, as you say, over time. There were three figures that are deemed kind of pivotal in the last kind of elements of the Battle for Terra, and those three people are all the same person. They've just been portrayed three times separately. And as you say, not only that, but there are 40k links in that Ol is the patron saint of the Imperial Guard.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, so whatever happens to him in context of the Heresy, that could actually happen because of something else, and because there's 10,000 years between the two, and stories get made up.
Absolutely.
Which is the beauty of 40k.
But also, if you listen to Perpetual or read its predecessor story, there's hints that maybe he touches in some other parts of the timeline due to the sort of timey-wimey nature of his path from Calth to Terra.
Yeah, and that's what Perpetual really kind of shows us, isn't it? It's the warp is a very funny place. We know that ships can turn up before they've left. We know that they can be lost for 3 years and 2 months has passed. We know all these things can happen. The Perpetuals who have, these Perpetuals, particularly John Grammaticus and all, have links to the Cabal. They know what's going on in the world. They have an idea, and they can utilize that timey-wiminess and almost control it. Which gives them a very different aspect and kind of plays on what they can do. And we find out also that Ol is a very, very old man.
Very old indeed. It is worth pointing out, for anyone who hasn't read or listened to these, that Perpetual is a very interesting story, but it's not your typical 40k story. There's very little in the way of action. It's that sort of classic Dan Abnett short where he likes to take something and run with it and play with it, and give you a bit of the backstory in a different setting to how he would portray it in a novel. Yeah,
absolutely. The key thing for me from Perpetual was we know we're pushing to Terra. We've had 2 or 3 stories, short stories, which have really kind of started to put key people, key things in place. And this felt like a huge chunk sliding into place to set up the Battle for Terra.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
And I really liked it. It was some of Dan's brilliant audio work, as far as I'm concerned. And the voices were great. It was quite funny. Before it was even released, there were people talking about the voice work on these things. Now, I suspect Ol's going to be this, kind of posh English voice, and he's very much not. He is a man of the people. He is of that ilk. When the voice comes across, they pick them very well.
Yeah, and then the John Grammatica's voice is not what you'll expect
No.
at all.
Yeah, no, I really like that. Okie dokie. What came next?
So from the Heresy perspective, the next one was Into Exile, which is beautifully timed to tie in with the recent release of Master of Mankind.
Indeed. In fact, would you suggest reading it, if you haven't read Master of Mankind, reading it first?
Well, yes and no. I mean, from a sense of time scale, it absolutely is a prequel to the Master of Mankind. I rather liked getting to know this particular techno-archaeologist in Master of Mankind and then going back and getting a bit more of his backstory. But I'm a bit like that. I think if you are the sort of person where you want to read things in, not necessarily in the order in which they're released, but in the time frame order, then yes, get hold of Into Exile, read that first, and it will mean that when this character is introduced in Master of Mankind, he'll be instantly familiar, and yeah, you'll be straight comfortable with that.
Yeah, I must admit, I didn't know how you kind of like. I've always been one of release order is the order to read books in, and I appreciate that someone wants to read chronologically, but I feel that when you're reading out of release order, you sometimes get kind of the second book is based on the fact that you've probably read the first book.
Yeah.
For people who don't know this character, we might as well say it's Land.
Cool. Yeah.
It's the guy who designed the Raider, the Speeder, because it's been said that he's in Master of Mankind. If you don't know who he is, then I feel that Master of Mankind gives you a very solid idea of who he is.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It does build that up.
The sort of person he is, the sort of approach he has. And I think he's actually such a crucial part of the viewpoints in Master of Mankind. Maybe we'll have time to talk about that in a bit. I thought Into Exile was beautifully done. Aaron's taken a very deliberate stylistic approach. It's not a straightforward A to B sort of story. It's short, but it's really good fun. And Land is just one of those characters that is complete idiot, but at the same time, the smartest guy in the story sort of thing. And that makes him a delicious character to have fun with and to put him in really uncomfortable positions.
Yeah, you're right. He's that genius who doesn't understand things.
Yeah.
It's like when he's doing what he's doing, he's infallible. But in normal civilization, everyone's like, who the heck's that guy?
And you can see him rubbing people up the wrong way.
Oh, big time. And what you see here is we've got a hunter, shall we say, in this. And that one has been used before and is done very well. I like the way it's crossed over from Rob Sanders' book short that he did, which was called, it was something like Hunted, something like that. But and also we see the absolute stoicism of the Imperial Fists at their finest.
Absolutely. There's a wonderful moment, without spoiling anything, where the Fist, the Space Marine, is he's getting stuck in, and he essentially, I'm paraphrasing, he essentially talks about how he's just getting stuck in, he's just doing what he has to do. There's no shouting daft war cries for him. He doesn't need it. He's just getting on with his job. He's not going to make a song and dance about it. Spot on.
Yeah, absolutely. Okie dokie. What's next?
So I think the next Heresy one was Gav Thorpe story called Grey Raven, which caught me out a little bit, actually, because one of the few things I'm behind on is Corax, which was, book 39, 40, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'd read all the rest of, I'd read the novellas and listened to Raptor and that sort of thing, but I hadn't got round, I'd bought it, it's on the shelf, I hadn't got round to reading the latest novella, which is only in Corax, called Wergeld. And I read the little blurb about the Grey Raven on the website and went, oh, what? This is a character from Wergeld, I'm going to have to go and quickly read the novella. For anyone who is in the same position as me, actually, you probably don't need to read the novella before reading this, because there's no spoiler about where this character goes and what he does in Wergeld. I'm glad I did, because it's a really good novella, but you shouldn't feel like you have to.
No, it's very much a bit part of that story. That story is very much about something else.
Oh, yes.
But it just has this character associated.
Yeah. Now, the hint is in the title, The Grey Raven. Don't really want to say too much more about what happens. Essentially, this character is sort of, I wouldn't say returning home, but, heading off, and is faced with a less welcome than he expected. And it ties in really nicely with another long-running arc that's been going through the heresy that people who have been following it will be very familiar with. And I thought, actually, again, without giving too much away, there's a little bit, more or less the last line, where he's introduced to another character.
Yeah.
And who I had to look up, I thought, that name's familiar, I can't remember where he's from. And when you realise what position in a Legion that character takes, and what position the protagonist takes, all of a sudden is a little bit interesting that certain people are being gathered together. And I thought, this is actually, I hadn't quite thought of it this way.
Yeah, a slightly different gathering to the gathering that we think of normally in the heresy. Yeah, it's a subject that's talked about on various forums quite a lot, and yes. once you read it, there's a lot of conjecture, there's a lot of guesswork, there's a lot of blatant wrongness as well, which is brilliant, because it's shrouded almost in mystery. We're letting little cracks of information, and that was it paid off really well, this story.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good fun story. It's like a lot of these short stories. It's a single moment. It's a little snapshot. So it's not absolutely essential, but what it does is tell a really nice, neat, complete story, about an interesting character, and not quite as dark and grim as Wergeld was. Warning, if you haven't read that, it is very dark. But the short story was still pretty heavy at one place in particular. And Gav's not pulling any punches at the moment. He's given us the feels.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's talked about that in different ways. He's unashamed in what he's doing because it needs to be done. This is the point we're at. The heresy is really building to a crescendo at the moment, and not everyone gets to play their part in that crescendo, and other people's parts aren't necessarily what the public as a whole think they're going to be, and everything else as well. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there's going to be some broken hearts in places, but it's all fun.
Yeah.
And I am not actually fully up to date now, so I've only got up to that point through various things.
You're in for a treat then, Greg. So the next heresy one is another audio drama, this time from Chris Raitt, called The Soul Severed. And at Black Library Live, Laurie and the guys made a point of referencing the specific grammatical way in which this is spelled out. So in a similar fashion to the reflection cracked, we have the soul severed. So we take the Emperor's Children. It's specifically an Eidolon story, and if you could believe it, as far as I'm aware, the first time that the Cacophony, the Proto-Noise Marines, have come into an audio drama.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Which, slightly amazing that no one's thought, hang on a minute, these guys kill people with sound waves. What does that sound like?
Yeah, I tell you what, though, part of me is thinking, can they make it sound as good as it does in my head? Yeah,
I agree. And I wasn't worried. I was interested. And maybe people will have a different opinion on it. I listened to it.
They definitely will.
Well, yes, I'm sure they will. I listened to it pretty loud on headphones. We talked before about the voice work. The voice work for Eidolon especially. The sort of arrogant, sneery sort of characters. Your Belacor in one of the Araman short audios and that sort of thing. They've really got down well. And an Eidolon is an interesting one. I think he's voiced brilliantly. He's placed up against another Emperor's Children officer, and they're essentially having a discourse in one way or another about their opinions on the leadership of the Legion. Suffice to say, the Cacophony get involved, so you can probably work out how that goes. I was thinking as I was listening, this is cool. I really love the voice work. The sound effects are great. But there's actually not much of the cacophony. There's them speaking, one particular one of them speaking and sounding fairly disgusting. And there's not that much of the cacophony of the cacophony.
Right.
until a key moment when listen on headphones, it all descends into sort of cackling, screaming, shrieking bonkersness, which is very entertaining. I think they've deliberately done that. They've played down how much they display of the cacophony's sound effects, and done it for impact and for effect. So when they do get introduced, it's pretty over the top, and it's essentially really silly, but brilliant fun.
Awesome. I can't wait to plug that into my ear holes.
Yeah, get onto that. It's also, you might think that, it's about noise marines killing loads of people. It is, but it's prefaced by a particular, really interesting, essentially, a philosophical discussion or discourse, about turning points. And you might think, well, Eidolon and co are long past the turning point. This provides an interesting perspective on that. And I thought when I finished it, actually, as usual, Chris Wright has delivered something that's not what I expected, that's gone in a slightly different way, and was really good fun.
He's just amazing. He really is amazing. Just a quick one. For those who've read Path to Heaven, there's an Emperor's Children guy in that who's very much not the caricature.
Oh, yes.
So is it a similar kind of thing to that, or is it slightly different?
No, not really, because the main protagonist is Eidolon. You're watching through Eidolon's eyes.
Right,
and,
okay.
He's had his head chopped off and sewn back on. He's not got a balanced viewpoint. The antagonist, his sort of fellow officer, is pitched more as the strict Emperor's Children officer, who's not degenerated quite as much,
Sure.
at least psychologically. But no, it's not quite the same as the guy from the Path of Heaven. It's more carrying on Eidolon's arc from that, because Chris did a really good job with how much Eidolon was in that.
Yeah.
I thought of fleshing that guy out and carrying on what Graham McNeil had done. But it's good fun. That's the key thing.
Excellent stuff. And we've got one last heresy one, haven't we? Time of recording.
Yeah, so at time of recording, we've just got the painted count. Now, I have the Advent subscription, so you might have expected I would have got that this morning. There are, as always appears to be the way with the subscriptions, some technical difficulties, shall we say. So, slightly frustratingly, I haven't had access to the painted count, even though, I have my subscription and it should have been waiting in my account this morning. From the description, it follows on from the Scrivox arc, who was introduced in, I think it's called A Safe and Shadowed Place by Guy Haley, which was a really cool little short story. And then he was one of the main antagonists in Pharos. So the leader of the Night Lords, who led them on their assault on Sotha. I won't say anything more, because if people haven't read Pharos, I don't want to spoil it. But it's obviously carrying on his arc from there. But yeah, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to get hold of that one.
Sure, and that's actually happened with on various days, hasn't it, for various people? It's been a bit of an issue.
It's been a little bit frustrating, and I've been in contact with the customer service guys at Black Library, and they've been really good about it. They've been as helpful as they can be, but it's been quite problematic. Now, I've had this discussion with them in the past. It is a shame because you pay up front. Granted, you pay up front and get a discount, but I've committed. I've said, look, I want to give you this money because I want to get all of this Advent content. It is a little frustrating that someone who picks and chooses and just goes and downloads it can download it straight away, whereas those of us who have committed can't. I mean, software can be a tricky thing, so there are obviously sort of issues going on, and I'm sure it'll be resolved soon. But it's been a few days of the month so far, and which is a shame.
Yeah, I kind of. There are always going to be software issues. You're always going to have these kind of things. They're never completely avoidable.
No.
But because they've happened already, you would have hoped that they'd kind of been smoothed out. And yeah, it is a shame. As you say, we are getting six things free. However, it's a frustration when you can't then access something and you're like, well, I've committed to pay the whole lot. As you say, you know, we're not to say that anyone's a truer fan than anyone else or something, but
No.
I've gone in blind on all these purchases, trusting you, and now you know it's I can't access it as easily. I mean it's one of those things. It, however, is a frustration.
It is, but fingers crossed. Pretty much all of the times I think so far this month that's happened, I've had access to it at some point the next day. So fingers crossed I'll get hold of that. Yeah, you know, you hope it won't continue.
Yeah.
We will see. You know,
Christmas Day. I'm not too sure how many people they're going to have on available Christmas Day to sort the issue.
No, that will be interesting. Although, unlike previous years where you've actually, if you've paid for the subscription, you've got for instance, a free novel on Christmas Day. This year's subscription actually only goes up to the 24th.
Oh yeah.
So the book, or I have a sneaky feeling books, I think we might see too, becoming available on Christmas Day, will be to buy, I think. Unless they want to be very nice and treat those of us who have bought the subscription, but I think they probably won't.
Yeah, I mean, it very definitely says 1st to the 24th, doesn't it?
It does,
I mean, that's something to talk about. Previously, we had Scars was released Christmas Day?
No, Scars was serialized, I think.
serialised.
I think the first one I saw that I remember that was released Christmas Day, not part of Advent, I don't think, was Araman Exile.
Right.
So that was exciting. I think then the following year you got, as part of the subscription, Khan, Eater of Worlds by Anthony Reynolds.
You're right.
Which, while short, was brilliant and very much appreciated. Last year, I believe Pharos was released in ebook, which confused a few people because it skipped a number in the numbered series.
Yeah, oh my gosh, how can we have number 33 out ahead of 31? Yeah, it's all fun. So we've got a number of other. Obviously, there's going to be Age of Sigmar books, 40k books.
Yeah, there's a couple that I'm pretty sure I know what they are. So Day 16 is another Raven Guard story. Now, from what Gav Thorpe has said before, I'm pretty sure this is going to be, I think, an audio drama called Valerius. So if you've been following the Corax arc right from the beginning of the Raven Guard, Marcus Valerius, who is the commander of the Therians, I think that's how you pronounce it, essentially the Imperial Army regiment who are supporting the Raven Guard. He has a part to play in Wergeld, and his arc continues on to an interesting place. I'm thinking after that. So I suspect this is following on from that, and probably, without giving too much away, tying in with some stuff that's coming up in other people's work, a particularly big moment. Which I think we've talked about. I think you guys talked about on the podcast last week of Beta Garmin. I think that's going to tie in with that. So that sounds quite good. The audio dramas have been excellent so far, so I have no reason to believe this won't be. From a heresy perspective, now there's a few others that I suspect. There's Day 19 looks to be, from the Advent Calendar page, a Death Guard story. That could well be heresy. We've clearly got to cover the Death Guard sooner rather than later, because essentially they haven't really been touched very much.
No, they've got a very big step to take before Terror.
They certainly have.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably going to touch upon Heresy Death Guard. Day 24, if you look at the Advent page, it looks to me like it's the pre-Heresy Thousand Suns logo, the sort of the four-pointed star sun sigil, whatever you want to call that.
Sure.
So I think that might be Thousand Suns. The others, it's difficult to say what's going to be Heresy.
So which day did you say was the Death Guard? Sorry.
Death Guard is Day 19.
Yeah, so a Horus Heresy short story. In fact, if you go into the subscription book, it has a very, very brief description of what's to come. So Day 13, we're on the Painted Count, as you say. We've got an Imperial Knight short story tomorrow, Blood Bowl short story. Day 16, a Horus Heresy audio drama.
There we go. Valerius.
There we go. Ultramarines Carcadons, a Horus Heresy short story, which... Death Guard.
With the Death Guard.
Age of Sigmar, 40k audio, 40k short story, Blood Bowl short story, Day 24, a Heresy short story.
There we go. And that Day 21, that 40k audio, from a conversation I had with Josh, you believe is going to be Lucas the Trickster.
Ooh, cool.
So we got a Lucas the Trickster short story from Christian Dunn, in last year's Advent calendar, which I think was called Jackal Wolf, which is one of Lucas's other names. And it's where, I'm pretty sure this is one where he basically tricks a word bearer's champion onto Fenris into terrain that does not suit the word bearers.
Excellent.
So that was quite good fun. I don't quite know what this audio will be, but Space Wolf audio should be quite good fun.
Yeah, cool. So there's a lot to come, which is cool.
There is. And if you look at the Advent page where it's gradually being revealed, you'll notice that it looks suspiciously like the cover from James Swallow's Garrow, which is due to be the next numbered book for the Heresy, which was on the Black Library's Coming Soon page for February, I think, and has since suspiciously disappeared.
Oh, has it? Yeah, they did tidy up the Coming Soon page, so that is something that maybe...
I think. Now, I'm pretty sure...
I think it's going to be the ebook release.
I think it's going to be the ebook release of that. Now, when we were both at Black Library Live, in the Coming Soon section, someone asked about Advent, and Nick dropped a hint about maybe there'll be some short stories, and maybe there'll be a book on the 25th, or maybe even two. I'm pretty sure that's what Nick said. So, Garrow looks like it's going to be one of them. If you look on Facebook, Robbie McNiven has been talking quite a lot about his really exciting Carcaridan's novel coming up, and he has made comments to the ebook being very soon.
Cool.
So, perhaps that will be on the 25th as well. Or there or thereabouts.
Something else to get up for on Christmas Day.
Yeah. I mean, open your presents, retreat to a comfortable chair, get yourself reading.
Yeah, that tough choice for me of, do I want to buy an ebook and then buy a hardback a little bit later on, which is always a tricky one.
It is. Now, for Robbie's, I know we're going off topic a little bit, because it's 40k and not heresy, although there's a lot of conspiracy theories around the origins of the Carcaradons, some of which have been shot down recently. I think that's looking really interesting. And for me, it's going to be really nice to support a new and upcoming author. He's talked quite a lot about, he's been quite open about the fact that he's been given a great opportunity to write about this. If it does well, he will have an opportunity to continue writing about it. For me, I'd love to see more about all manner of Space Marine chapters. So the more we, collectively, the fan base, choose to commit and, vote with our money, the more likely it is that we'll get more cool stuff in general. So, if there's an ebook, and I'm probably going to want a hardback at some point later, for the odd choice, the odd title, maybe I'll get both.
Yeah, it comes down to absolutely, how desperately you do want to read that. As a podcaster who has people message him, who has, not hundreds of thousands of people, but enough people message you, have you read this? Do you know what this? And there's a certain kind of pressure on me, in a way, to be current, really current. So there's a bit of that. There's a bit of just wanting to read it. This Garrow book has been talked about for 3 years. Jim has outlaid that he wants to do this book, and it ties all the audio into a novel with extra bits. So it's not just reprinting audio as a book.
Yeah, I think that's going to make it very interesting, because the Garrow arc has been extremely popular, and I think it's been a big part of why audio has taken off for Black Library, because the Garrow stories have been so good. They've got someone like Jim Swallow, who has a track record of writing for audio and writing for TV and that sort of thing. They've got someone who really knows his craft, and they've turned into really great stories. And they have jumped around a little bit. So the idea of bringing that back into a novel format and potentially seeing more connective tissue between those stories, and also, I like that. And
also an easy way to get the timeline as well.
Yes,
that's quite confusing in that. Excellent stuff. So that's the Advent. Cool. So far. We'll have a look at that again, I'm sure. We mentioned Master of Mankind. I haven't really talked about it, except to say I loved it and read it. Let's go for it, shall we? So this is non-spoiler.
Non-spoiler. If you want spoilers, there are forums and forums and forums worth of conversations.
Don't.
Just beware. Yes. Go in, under warning, because it's not always friendly. that sort of conversation.
Master of Mankind provided answers, some answers, also provided a lot of questions.
And even those answers...
Yeah.
I mean, they are answers of a sort. Are they to be 100% trusted? Probably not. Yeah. Certainly not always.
No, there's things like, as we always say, point of view. There are some things might not be said literally, things like that. And it's upset some people's worldviews on the heresy, it's fair to say. It's kind of confirmed others. For me, it kind of fit. I'm not saying I got everything right, but the general overview of it felt right to my worldview, with a couple notable exceptions.
Yeah, I think so. And those, I mean, you want to read a book like The Master of Mankind and come away going, oh, whoa, that's cool. That blindsided me. Yeah, that conforms to what I thought. I feel smug about that. And I mean, I think Aaron's the sort of guy, like, he wants to understand and really drill down into his characters. Now, he's talked about how it's not a book about the Emperor, it's a book with the Emperor in.
A bit like Jaws is not a film about a shark.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, some people will want and will have wanted a book about the Emperor, a book from the perspective of the Emperor. For me, and I suspect you'd agree with this, that way madness lies. I mean, the whole point of the Emperor is that he's this supreme human being. May well be human, or maybe not human, but he's a supreme being. I mean, how can an author get that across? And people said that about Primarchs. Some of the depictions of Primarchs have been better than others. I think that's fair to say. But I think overall we've had some pretty good depictions of Primarchs.
Yeah.
The Emperor is a different thing entirely.
Yeah, it's a lesser extent, but imagine if, I'm saying the Emperor is a lesser extent, but we're trying to write Cthulhu from the point of view of the old ones.
Absolutely.
I mean, they think differently. There's the concepts are different. Like the Emperor has supreme psychic ability. So, which, we've seen various instances among other races of being able to foretell the future, of being able to control -6. He took, we know he visited Mars a long time ago. To get into the mind of someone who thinks like that is almost humanly impossible anyway.
Absolutely. And I think Aaron's chosen very wisely, because he's displayed the Emperor from a range of different viewpoints. And, what he's not done is just go, here's the Emperor, here's a bunch of Primarchs. Let's see the Emperor from his son's perspective. He's shown him from Sisters of Silence, the Custodies, a Space Marine, from non-posthumans. And what that does is allows you to build up a picture. Now, Archon Land is going to see the Emperor through the lens of his own preconceptions, his own experiences and interests and that sort of thing. And the same thing with the Blood Angel, the same thing with a Custodian. A Sister of Silence poses a different question, I think, but still a very interesting perspective. And so you can infer things about the Emperor through his actions and through his dialogue with other people or his behaviour towards other people. And that's really cool. I think a lot of the contention has come from people reading something and going, nah, I don't believe that. The Emperor wouldn't do this. Well, on the one hand, I wouldn't make that assumption. On the other hand, you're seeing it from the perspective of one person. You don't get to see it objectively. You are not personally watching the Emperor have that conversation, which makes it interesting because you have to extrapolate it based on, well, this is a guy who thinks logically, who thinks in binaric or whatever. He's gonna see the Emperor in a very specific light.
Yeah,
that's cool.
You're absolutely right. When John French teased me about this book about a month before it came out, and he was like, right, the Emperor, we get to see a 5-point plan. Or we had to work out a 5-point plan so we could portray a plan. Whether that plan's portrayed as the actual plan or not, again, is a different issue. We had to trawl back through loads of information, and every reveal, every question, every little bit in that, none of it's new. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all based on information that is all out there. And there are people who have very strong views one way or the other. And a lot of the time, they either forget, don't know, or ignore certain aspects of information. I've said on a few times that I've always felt that that this is the Emperor's, like the heresy, everything, the whole plan is like he's walking a tightrope. And not only is he walking a tightrope, but he's got to do 5 things as well. And he's taking his best shot at it. And he knows that even his best shot only has a certain percentage chance of working, but he's still doing it. And to me, I felt that was conveyed to a certain extent. However, other people have read it and said, no, they felt it was this. They felt that, he was just trying to do this and it was all personal glory and what have you. And someone else has said something completely different. So it's quite interesting to look at the fact that people can read different things out of it. I say personally, from the conversations I've had afterwards, there's been a couple of, some major things, but they haven't affected kind of the plan, as it were. But they've kind of expanded upon it and changed the outlook of how it works, those kind of things. But it's very interesting to see how that information's been pulled from a variety of sources. And when you look at what's written, you can go and find where it was. Again, how valid it is, what it actually means, and everything else can then be brought into, contention.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I do think there can be a tendency with this sort of thing to go, it's in a book, it's true. And then if it's in a different book and it says something different, like, but it said this in this book. Well, yes. Don't take everything completely literally. I mean, the authors are deliberately doing this. I mean, that's part of telling a story. Being a narrator is, it's nice to have a little bit of artistic license. It's interesting for the reader. And cool. If you want to know an answer to everything, fine, go and ask for it. I sort of get the feeling personally that the heresy authors, Black Library authors in general, are not inclined to answer every question.
You aren't getting every answer. Simple as that. No. The other thing that I have seen is people say that because of this part of the book, that means this bit which we already know about, which is enshrined in heresy law, is now incorrect. And has broken the heresy. And there are a number of issues with that. Sometimes they're misreading the later part. Sometimes there are more than one later part, and we have to choose our version. A lot of the time, that later part of the heresy is information gathered from 40K literature. Yeah. So 10,000 years have passed. Now, when we try and work out what happened with the Romans, we have a certain amount of information written down, and there are still huge questions 2,000 years ago. So there are still arguments over how a certain battle was fought and what exactly happened, and was so-and-so a genius or were they lucky, and all these things. When you extrapolate that by 10,000 years with the archaic nature of their technology, with the fact that the Imperium is almost constantly at war for like 8,000 of those years, then you can understand how you cannot rely on that information. There'll be kernels of truth, but it might not necessarily be the whole truth. So we have to see how things progress. And even then, they actually could unite because there's some other piece of information we don't know as well. So
absolutely,
you can't. It's the prejudging of what's going to happen based on what has happened is often a very difficult thing to get right, and don't lose your head over it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the other thing to remember is if you think back to what we all thought about the heresy, we all knew, because we knew at the time what happened at the heresy. We knew this happened, and then this happened, and this happened. Yeah. But actually, quite a lot of that has been proved to be either different or just straight up not true. What we know is that during the Siege of Terror, Horus dropped his shields. The Emperor teleports above the battle barge. Sanguinius dies. The Emperor destroys Horus. Cool.
Spoilers.
We know that. Spoilers. But do we know that? I mean...
Yeah. Who told us that?
Exactly. So
bearing in mind that the emperor was, is basically a husk. Horus is dead. Sanguinius is dead. So who was left on there?
Exactly.
We've been shown a number of times in 40k lore now, particularly with the Beast Arises, that they might be lying to you about a few things for your own good.
Yeah. And I think Sanguinius is the most interesting of those. So the Blood Angels meta-narrative, in 40k, is all about the tragedy of their Primarch, because he died so that the Emperor could sort of win. But, throw in a concept out here, what if that's not true? What if Rogel Dawn or whoever rocks up and goes, right, Horus is dead, the Emperor's pretty much dead, Sanguinius is dead. We know Sanguinius was loyal, so he's obviously died killing Horus. But he's made an assumption there. So that's an example of someone, unless someone was there and watched the whole thing, and we get a transcript of their explanation, we're making assumptions here. Maybe Sanguinius wasn't loyal. Maybe Sanguinius didn't die the way we think he died.
Take a look at Boromir from Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
When Aragorn get there, he can sit there and just say, "I'm protecting the hobbits."
Mm.
And no one will know until they get to the hobbits. It's exactly that situation, as you said. And if you want to, you can go and look up on forums Sanguinius theories, and there are many, and some have more kind of weight to them than others. But there are some really interesting concepts that any one of them could kind of have it could have an essence of truth about it, which would change the way we look at the end of the heresy.
Yeah, I think that's right. But what for me is really interesting, I mean, if I was Aaron, if I was a Black Library author, the fact that a new book comes out and it has provoked so much conversation, so much dialogue and discussion, that's a win. It's got people talking about it, it's got people buying it, listening to it, reading it, whatever. I would far rather that, if I were an author, than someone going, "No, it's all right, move on, let's have the next one."
Yeah, as they say, it's better to be loved and hated than just kind of liked.
Exactly. So, I think if you take personal preference out of the way, which sometimes you have to do, and try and look at it objectively, I mean, Master of Mankind is a dark book. It's not, as Laurie said when I chatted to him, it's not making grown men weep in Bugmans like Path of Heaven, which is the most emotionally brutal Black Library book I've certainly ever read. But it's bleak. It's not happy. And you finish it. I finished it and thought, whoa, wow, this is 40k. This is the grim darkness. And it's great for that. Now, that means it's not always the easiest read. It's written from the perspective of people who are beaten up. I think you talked last time about the cover and about how the Emperor's looking pristine and the Custodes and the Sisters are looking not pristine. I mean, that's how we see them, isn't it? We see these guys have been fighting for 5 years.
Yeah.
It's not like if you go into this book knowing that it's the war in the Webway, and if you go in knowing nothing more than it's part way through that war and they are fighting against a tide of demons who don't need sleep, who don't need breakfasts, who don't need toilet breaks, it's not going to be a happy story.
No, absolutely.
But Aaron writes good books. He attracts a very specific set of sort of hero worship, and that's cool because he's brilliant and he's written some fantastic books. Strip all that away, strip all the rhetoric and the hyperbole. It's a very interesting story, and it opens up possibilities and it provokes questions. Is it Aaron's greatest work yet? People will have to decide that for themselves. Is it really good? Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, we kind of realised we didn't really describe the story. It's been more.
No.
I mean, it is in essence, as you say, that the Emperor's plan is the Webway. That's knowledge that is out there. This is set on Terra. This is the Emperor's great plan post the Magnus Folly, which is a brilliant term. And as you say, they've been fighting for 5 years in this never-ending war. And we've got the Mechanicum, we've got the Custodians. As you say, we've got these other couple of characters to help provide different points of view and the other things they do during the job. But that is, in essence, that is what we have. What is going on in this war? Why it's going on, and what that means for the future of mankind, for the Great Crusade, for the Horus Heresy. And in essence, it's a very simple plot.
It is exactly that, and I think that's very interesting, because if you strip it back, if you strip all the flashbacks, they're not really flashbacks, but we'll call them flashbacks. If you strip all of that out and take the structure of it and go, well, what happens at the start, what happens at the end, and how do they get from A to B? Well, it's pretty simple, really. Once you figure out what's going on, because Aaron's not giving you the whole story straight up front. Once you finish it and you go, oh, okay, that's cool, I get that. And then you think, well, what that's done is given him the opportunity to really dig into these characters. It's full of all those little hints, and what Aaron does really well, which is absorbing the lore and just sounds a bit rude, really, but sort of regurgitating it, but in a different fashion, in a fashion that makes you think, oh, I love that little connection here that I spotted, and you feel sort of smug for having seen that. It's very well constructed. And he's done what he always does, which is make compelling characters. The fact that he's taken Arkan Land, who is toweringly arrogant, and the sort of person you would spend 5 minutes with and want to kick him out the door of the tank. I couldn't bear to actually spend much time with him. And custodians who are not good company.
No. The very nature of custodians is dealt with in this book, and they're revealed to be what they are, and that's neither a good nor a bad thing in many ways. But yeah, as you say, the depth of even the Space Marine character in there, what he goes through, and that role is it's needed. It is needed, and you can see why Aaron wrote half this book and scrapped it.
Absolutely.
And came back.
For me, if I had a single criticism, it would be if I was being a little bit deliberately picky. The Space Marine character in there is quite clearly, when you finish it, in there for a specific narrative purpose.
Yes.
And once you sort of see why he's in there, you go, oh, I get why you've got him. And it's given Aaron the opportunity to develop an interesting character, but to develop a Blood Angel, which he's clearly a big fan of. And originally, I gather, the Blood Angels were going to have a much bigger part in the story. Now, a Blood Angel is the exact right character to have. So he's not done it for personal enjoyment, sort of thing. The character there, it serves a purpose. It is a little bit sort of, okay, well, I need something to facilitate this.
Yeah.
If I'm being picky, but that's being picky.
I think I agree. Had that purpose not been needed, he would not be there. But needing him there, he's created a good enough reason to have him there.
Absolutely. And this is a Space Marine that we've not really seen before.
Yeah.
It's a Space Marine in a position that he is essentially pointless to start off with. He has no purpose. And that's explained. I won't say why that's the case, but what I thought was really interesting is we've seen, especially in Aaron's work, something like Hell's Reach, where you see Grimaldus and the gulf between him and humanity. Like he doesn't understand humans. He doesn't get why they think the way they think. And he doesn't have the perspective to be able to go, well, this is why. Now, the Blood Angel in Master of Mankind is not that sort of Space Marine, but he shows the Custodies to be like that. I thought that was very interesting from Aaron, especially. So there's a wonderful scene which is there, which might annoy people who were there purely for action, who were like, come on, keep it moving, I just want to get some fighting. But for the rest of us, it's this wonderful moment of a Space Marine, a Custodian, and some children. And if that's not a setup for something deeply entertaining and deeply humorous, really, then I don't know what there is. That moment was wonderful, and if you read nothing else, you'd go away thinking, I sort of feel like I understand the Custodies a bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we say like questions are answered and other questions are kind of posed, why can't the Custodians be more involved in the Great Crusade is answered in this book.
Oh yes,
it's very much answered. But yeah, I think. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap that up?
I don't think so. Go out and buy it. Like, don't go and read spoilers or listen to spoilers and make your opinions up. Buy it, read it. If you don't like it, cool, fine. That's your prerogative, and that's absolutely right. But make your mind up having read it.
Yeah, absolutely. What we are going to go deeper into this book with spoilers and everything else. I've stated for a while now I want to talk about the Emperor of Mankind and who and what and how and why, and we are planning on getting Aaron on, probably with John as well.
And that will be a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, because there's two guys there who can really dissect what's going on. Awesome. So, well, thank you for coming on, Michael. We're, as I say, moving forwards. We're going to have Michael on probably every show, just to do, at the very least, some quick kind of reviews, and more often having a bit more in-depth chat as well. It won't be an hour every week. Don't worry about that, guys. But certainly give it a chat.
But once again, thanks for having me on. If you guys are interested, if you like some book reviews, check out Track of Words. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, or trackofwords.wordpress.com. Drop me a line. Give me a shout. If you've got anything you want to talk about, any requests, go for it. Always happy to talk. Yeah, and as you've said, you review stuff, but you have got the interview with Laurie on there as well, so interviews, things like that. Totally, and there's going to be some more interviews coming up, probably next year, but there's some interesting things coming, so keep an eye out. And if you've got, I'm open to thoughts, so I do a little weekly rundown of things that have been coming out, but if someone's got a really cool idea for something you'd like to read about, let me know. I'm always happy for ideas.
Excellent stuff. Well, once again, thank you, and we'll come back and close out the show.
Good stuff. Thanks very much.
And that's another episode done. Hopefully you enjoyed a little chat with Mike there. As I say, it's something we're going to do, not that long, but we'll have him on hopefully every show, doing a good 10-15 minute maybe. Might go a little bit longer. These things tend to with me involved, but nature of the beast.
Indeed, yeah.
Indeed. Before we go, we do have a few things to talk about. There's a couple of events. Have you seen the adverts for the SN Battle Reports?
Yes, I have. I even got sent one to my Instagram account.
Oh, did you now? Okay, so these are guys in Gibraltar. They have a YouTube channel, don't they?
I believe so, yeah. I believe so. I mean, they did contact me about going a while ago, and I just said, you've got to be joking. The way I paint, it'll take me so long to get my army done.
Sure. So this is No Retreat Horus Heresy, and this is a limited kind of ticket event in Gibraltar, and they go whole hog. So this is their first pure heresy event. They've done 40k events, and they do look great. They do look really good, and there's some it is tempting, but it's just wrong time of year for me. I've got plenty of stuff going on. It's early March. So, yeah, halfway between Weekender and Adepticon. Not good. So,
and I think the last 40k one, I know Andy Wardle went to.
Yeah, I saw him bigging it up. And it does look really cool. So this is, Horus Heresy No Retreat. 2,500 point armies, £75 ticket price. And then there's overnight packages and things. There's painting competitions and displays. And this is in the Europa Retreat Centre, Gibraltar, 11th of March to 12th of March. You can go to SM Battle Reports at hotmail.com, send an email, or go to search for them on Facebook. I'll put the link up to the event page as well. And they got their full pack is on their website. And I did have a little look at it, but as I say, not a full-blown look because I was doing plenty of other stuff at the time. It's kind of tempting, though. Trip over to Gibraltar to go and play some toy soldiers and then have a couple of days hanging around. And
from what I've seen as well, it's the event looks very well done. I mean, the armies that go seem to be really, really nice.
Yeah. They seem to have, as we talked earlier on about the way they set up their events, they're rewarded by the people that come to them. There are only 36 tickets, I believe. So if you do want to get involved, then you might have to be quick. But it does sound cool. Maybe next year. Maybe I'll put it on the... Problem is, it's early in the year. Is like Las Vegas Open is early in the year. Kind of want to do that as well. So overnight packages are £35 per night for a single room, or 25 per person for a double room, which is very good. That's for Friday,
Very good value.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on a licensed premises. So you've got to be over 18 to stay there. English is the official language, which must be spoken during each game. You know, clarified that. And they've got kind of, a list of rules and whatever, and they've got Maelstrom objectives they're using. I wonder if they've been adapted or so. And they've got the list of all the scenarios and everything else. But you've got painting competition, single miniature, unit squad, vehicle, monstrous gargantuan creature, diorama. Yeah. Looks pretty cool, and I might have to kind of keep an eye on that one when it goes on to keep up to date. See, because I've got a feeling that's going to look pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Definitely.
And there was also, we had another one. So this is the Victoria Heresy 30k event, Lantasy, Lantasy. So I think this is Victoria, British Columbia, which I always think is East Canada, but it's West Canada, I think, right up near Seattle. So,
right.
Yeah. And they're having a 3,000 point, armies may be chosen up to 3,000 points with an optional 500 point sideboard. And they're doing an event up there, which is pretty cool. Using all kinds of groovy stuff. Just having a little flick through as we go. It's 5 games over 2 days. There we go. That's it. I was double checking before I got on that. And they're using a general matching traitors versus loyalists system of some kind. So yeah, that all looks pretty good. Again, you can go and Google that or search for that on Facebook, and they will all the details are there. But that looks pretty cool. Which actually, because I've got a friend in Portland, which on a map, you know, I'm sure it's a fair distance, but it doesn't look like beyond the realms of possibility of, like, if there are events over that way of going to Portland and then driving up, or getting probably more likely getting the train or the bus up over into Canadian land.
Canadian.
Yeah, you know, just give them a bit of grief. But yeah, that's cool. So I think they've adjusted. They've got an adjusted FAQ document as well there they've worked on. So that looks pretty awesome. I think it's part of a larger event. But yeah, I'll put the links to that. But if you go to Facebook and search for LANTASY or Victoria Heresy, it will probably all turn up for you. And as I say, from the first part of the show, I will be working hard this Christmas on starting to organise my events that are going to be coming up in the future. When I have specifics, a few more specifics, I will release the area and the dates. So again, people can jump in really early with the hotels. It probably won't be as bad as Cardiff in that respect, but hotels always gets more expensive. So I want to get them out as early as possible. And if you get them on, like, usually with a lot of places, only a couple of quid more to go refundable over non-refundable. So you can book them up even if you're not 100% sure. Just to help out, really, which is we all want to make it as easy as possible and to create as good an event as possible. So
definitely.
If we can do that, that will all help. And as I say, the London Heresy, if you want to get put on the reserves list for the third phase tickets, then you can head over there, send an email to the guys to do that. Don't send them to me. I have nothing to do with the ticket purchasing. It's all handled by the 40k GT guys. I'm kind of subcontracted in to run the event. That's pretty much it. So they handle all the money and everything else. But if we get a big enough reserves list, then, maybe it leads to an expansion of the event. So if everyone wants to do it, jump on that, because that should be a good laugh. Excellent stuff. The one last thing. Unfortunately, we were going to have Rob Symes from the Warhammer community team on for a special episode. Unfortunately, he was called into work. I was about the only podcast that he had to bail on, I believe, because he's on a lot of the Warhammer podcasts. But Warhammer Live will be live from the 14th, so we'll have already sat and watched some of it. And this is so we've talked about it before. It's Warhammer Wednesdays, 40k Fridays, Thursdays is interviews. This is all on their Twitch channel. And for the first week, everything is free. So you can go and check it out, see if you like it. Then there was some confusion. The clarification, as far as I'm aware, is if you watch live, it will be free. Moving on. If you wish to access the content at a later point, it is a £5 a month membership fee, which is the way a lot of Twitch channels work. Or they do different things like that. Some have different models, but, a lot of Twitch people who try and make money out of it will keep back some stuff behind the paywall, which is understandable. It's cost a lot to put on. They've got to have cameras. They've got to have people working the cameras, working the stream, people on TV. They've probably, providing, I don't know, I'm not bid it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're providing a few drinks and stuff for the people who are playing, and things like that. Wednesdays and Fridays, they're going to be having campaign games during the day. So that's obviously British time. And then I think it's about 7 o'clock or something, or maybe 5, 6 o'clock, can't remember. They'll be playing tournament style or competitive style games in the evening of those game systems. So maybe if you're in America, you're only going to wake up and maybe hook on to that second one. Or if you're home from work in the UK, in Europe, then it'll be the competitive one will be the ones then. But, I'm hopefully going to be in a lucky position tomorrow where I can sit and watch the campaign and see how that's going, see what they're doing with it. The big one for me, as I've said before, is the Thursday, the interviews, which sounds like really cool. They're asking for questions. They're asking for people to send in, kind of, what do you want to see? This is just launching. This is something they're trying out. If it's not successful, they will drop it. No company should be keeping something going that's costing them way more than it brings in,
Yeah, definitely.
And that doesn't necessarily mean it's got to break even. I'm not 100% sure because it's essentially advertising at the same time. But I would expect they expect to make at least cover their costs, at least. What I'm doing, I know there's a talk about if you've got Amazon Prime, you can get a free Twitch subscription. I need to check out whether Amazon Prime pay for that or how much they pay for that. But I'm happy enough that I've got another Twitch channel that I want to subscribe to as well. So I'm going to use the free one for that one. And I want to pay for this channel. And I want to pay for this channel because I want to see it carry on.
Yep.
And Rob was actually on the Scrubby and Wells podcast, which is an Age of Sigmar podcast, but they're very interesting Age of Sigmar podcast in that they look at the environment of gaming. They look at, the guys are quite business minded, so they look at certain aspects of that, and then they look at etiquette, and there's some really interesting ideas they've got on gaming as a social structure. And he said on that, I'm quite glad that you're making us pay for it because, it reinforces the fact that they want it to be one of the best gaming channels in the business. And it won't get there straight away, but over a small period of time, they want it to be top draw doing what it's doing. And the only way that that's going to happen is if it's successful. I specifically asked a question at one point, are we going to get 30k on there? The answer is, if it's successful, then they'll look at doing 30k. So we're not going to get that straight away. They might feed a little bit into the 40k, who knows, but down the line, but we've got options for Blood Bowl. We've got options for Adeptus Titanicus when that comes out. This is where we could potentially have them talking about it before it's released, so we get all the information coming direct from GW. You know, the Warhammer Live as a TV service, as a Twitch service, has a lot of potential. It will only achieve that potential if it's supported financially. So I'm more than happy to do that. I really am. And I know a number of my friends are as well. £5 a month is, what, £60 a year? Nothing really, is it?
I don't think so. I mean, £5
What's that,
a
a
month.
pint and a half?
I've got loads of other subscriptions that I spend on
Yeah. So
more than that.
if you're in London, that's a pint. Oh, well,
Yep.
under a pint, depending on which part of London you're drinking in. If you're outside of London, it might be a pint and a bit, right? And that's a month for what they think is going to be about 60 hours of content, right? Well, break that down. That is not a lot of money. I've seen people saying that they might cancel their White Dwarf subscription and use that money for, or cancel buying White Dwarf and use that money for Warhammer Live, which will provide them much of a similar experience, but maybe in a more digestible format. Which sounds
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
it could be another one of those great painting or, sitting doing hobby resources.
Yeah, and if you can watch live, you might not be able to do it all the time, but if you can jump on there live, they're going to have the chat going and everything else as well. And they were quite fun watching the Age of Sigmar events that they've done. Having Duncan on doing like live chat, they're getting Phil Kelly on's one of the first one. Alan Bly's on the photo. Like when they put out the promotional thing, Alan Bly's face is there. So on a Thursday, they could have an hour and a half of Alan Bly talking about the next thing that's coming. Who doesn't want that? Alan's not someone we have seen a huge amount in the media. Coming from that, he's, from what I hear, he's quite happy to be where he is. But he can also talk. He's comfortable up on the stage at events, and having him for an hour and a half on the TV, as it were, talking about heresy. Actually, Alan's brilliant when he starts to get into the in-depth discussions that are going on. So yeah, there's authors, artists, all those backroom stuff that you don't really know much about, but can come forwards. There's a lot.
Journalists and accounts.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you say that. So the guys who make the display boards, yeah, they're great hobbyists. Well, the display boards don't always show off kind of like their technical hobby and ability, except for making cool display boards. Because as we said, that not all those miniatures are painted to a great standard because they're in the background and all that. But they are really good hobbyists, and they're all pretty passionate. Actually, a lot of the people who work in the mould making part are hobbyists. People who work on editing the magazine play the game, and they've got a passion for it. So there's so much for them to draw on. And Eddie and Rob are great. Duncan's great on the TV. And who else did they have? Nick's moved over, isn't he? So yeah. Nick Baton's moved over there. I can't remember the lady's name, because I haven't really kind of had an interaction with her. So yeah, there's really cool guys doing it, guys and girls. And, I'm really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it. And it's going to be one of those things. I don't think I'm going to watch much of the competitive gaming, but that's cool. I've got plenty of other stuff to watch. And I've got a few suggestions for them as well. I want to try and get hold of someone, because there's things they can do once they've got that raw kind of data, that show, they can do stuff with that as well. So this doesn't necessarily stop at broadcasting live and then having it sat on Twitch ready to be viewed. There's other things that have potential going forwards. And when we talk about coverage of events, then this can come into that. We were talking about maybe the Horus Heresy the information gets released down the line. Well, there's no reason why they couldn't put it up on a Monday, like a week or two later, that, okay, on the Twitch channel there's this, and then it's behind a paywall.
Yeah, that would maybe relieve a bit of pressure to things like the Weekender. Yeah,
I'm not saying that is the perfect answer, but it's just off the top of my head is something they can do. And this means, if this is more successful, this probably means more events get covered, like live, things like that. So yeah, there's a whole scope, and we talked quite a long time about it, but Warhammer Live has real big potential. I'm probably going to sign up straight away for the foreseeable future. And wouldn't it be awesome if, like, they invited you and me up to go and play a game at Warhammer World? Because Rob, he's on Twitter, so's Eddie now, and Andy Smiley, like, I think heads up the team. I think Rob was on Twitter asking who are the big names in the 40k scene. He's a Age of Sigmar player, so he knows where to go to look for those people. He was asking players that live near Nottingham, people who are big on the scene. So they are looking for, particularly for the competitive side of the game, they're looking for people who do well at tournaments, who can go up and be around Nottingham for a day or two, or however long they need to. I don't know the system. So, you know, they are going to have average Joes, as it were, on the streams, which is pretty cool as well. And I'm sure if you've got a really awesome looking army and stuff like that, you know, that's not going to hurt, is it? They
Definitely not. No.
But yeah, I mean, who knows where it's going to lead? It's a brave move in some respects. I really want it to work. But we shall see. They're working very hard as well. Rob unfortunately couldn't make that interview. I'm not even sure he's replied to my follow-up message. I know he worked a 15-hour day yesterday or today, kind of getting ready for the stream and things like that. He's been on loads of podcasts. And this is a guy who, you know, has other jobs as well, or certainly had. So I don't know if he's still doing them or what, but they're working hard to make this work. So yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Beautiful. Okay, well, we will shut up now. We'll just do the final little bits. So, as we said at the start, iTunes reviews, always helpful. Even if you listen to the show and you do it, so I'm gonna look at some other. There are more streaming sites becoming available. iTunes obviously is the favourite one. If you listen to the show and you download each individual one and you listen every week, subscribing is a really big help. It's actually what iTunes uses as the main kind of driver for pushing shows up the feeds and stuff, more than reviews. What reviews do is they help people decide whether they want to listen to the show or not. So both are really helpful. So if you listen to the show every week and you haven't actually subscribed, if you subscribe, that's a really big help. And reviews are great. You know, as we said, we've got a whole 1-star review. We've got our 4-star review. If you've got feedback for the show and you think that we need to know about it, feel free to email us.
Definitely, yeah.
Because if it turns out that I'm doing something really simple to fix that annoys 100 odd people, 200 million people, then, you know, maybe we can look at fixing that. But if I don't get told about it, then I might not be aware I'm doing it. So, Neil's wonderful, obviously.
Yeah, don't email me about anything that I do wrong, because I don't want to know.
Yeah, too right. But yeah, you know, honest reviews. I haven't got a problem with honest, just as long as they are honest, critical reviews rather than just having a go at me for not liking me. Yeah. I can handle it. I just rather not have it. So if you do have any feedback, Greg at The Imperial Truth.
Or Neil at theimperialtruth.com.
Yeah, absolutely. .com. Yeah, good boy. And on Twitter at Child of Fang.
And at Neil Paints.
And at Imperial_Truth. Once again, after Eleanor has moved over to the Freebooters Network. So if you do listen to that, our next show, which hopefully will be early-ish next year, will be released on that feed. And there are some cool shows on the Freebooters Network, actually. Been listening to a few. There's some different stuff, and there's what it does really well is it gives you an opportunity to listen to things like the D6 Generation have their mini-sodes on there now, which are quite old, but they give you a taster for those guys. So check out the Freebooters Network, because it's quite cool. And then come on the Facebook groups and pimp your models. Want to see your models over Christmas? Oh yeah, I reckon we should get a little bit of get people showing that what they're working on over Christmas. That'd be really cool, wouldn't it?
Not a bad idea, yeah.
Yeah, because I probably will be hobbying Christmas morning. After my lying. So, I don't have kids. It's great.
Yeah, I'll be knee deep in wrapping paper. I won't be doing any hobby.
Is that wrapping or is that unwrapping?
No, that's unwrapping.
Oh,
when
okay.
you're trying to stop them from just playing with the box.
Yeah, classic. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've got the Evelina, the raffle, the draw is still going. So that ends on the 20th. And the prize will be sent after Christmas to avoid problems with Christmas post. So if you do want to send any money to that, go on to theimperialtruth.com, top right, click on the link, tell you how to PayPal the money. If you don't want to PayPal or want to do it some other way, we can do it. You have to contact me direct. And that's about it, I think. Don't forget to go through Element Games, go through the Imperial Truth. Still every now and then get people asking me, what's your code? And I say, the big one is to go through the website. The code's this, but, GRE259, I think it's been a long time since I said that. And they go through the website. Oh yeah, go through the website. That's the one that lets them know that you're coming from us. So that one's really useful. Brilliant stuff. I think we're done.
I think so.
I'm going to be hopefully spending quite a bit of time between Christmas and New Year getting some stuff in the can ready to go. We shall see how busy other people are. I tend to be not too busy in that period of time, so it's quite good. But other people have lives and things, so we'll see. But we're definitely working on things like the next Sons of Heresy episode, stuff like that. But there we go. Awesome. We'll leave that there, and until next time. You have been listening to The Imperial Truth.